Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Fall Summit 2020. Welcome to the Batch 7 Supply Chain Expo. We're glad to have you with us. My name is Harvey Williams. I'm a Senior Ventures Associate on the supply chain team here, and I'm going to be your MC for this morning. And so we're really happy to have you with us. We've got a lot of startups that came through Batch 7 that have been able to interact with our corporate partners. We're going to hear from a lot of them whenever it comes to some of the conversations that they're having, some of the projects that they're working on. We also have a panel of our corporate partners where we're going to talk about automation priorities and a couple of other things. So we're really excited to have you with us again. We'll go ahead and move into the next slide here in a second. Perfect, there's the agenda. So we're gonna open it up. We're gonna hear from Mike Deeyook. He's the founder of the supply chain vertical here at Plug and Play. We're then gonna have our keynote from Richard Ebach. He's the CIO of the Americas for DB Schenker. And then we've broken out our startup presentations into their kind of technology bucket. So we're gonna have a robotics section. We're going to have a document processing section. We're gonna have kind of a visibility section. So we're excited that you're with us. If you want to interact with any of our startups, just let us know. We'll be happy to make those introductions for you. We're also going to have a networking session on Remo. That's actually going to be on a separate platform, and we've got a good slide here. It's a virtual floor plan where you'll be able to interact serendipitously with each of the founders, startups, other corporate partners, etc. You'll have a chance to try to make this as normal of a networking environment as possible. And so there will be a link that we'll be able to provide to you if we haven't already to jump into this other platform for the networking session at the end. So again, thank you for joining. We're glad to have you with us. I'll go ahead and turn things over to Mike Deeyook to open it up for us.
Sounds great. Thank you, Harvey, and welcome everyone to the Fall Summit. We miss seeing you all in person, but I think we've all gotten used to these online webinars today. So I'll go through some just history of Plug and Play for those that are new to Plug and Play. I'll also talk a little bit about this program. I think it's exciting that we can bring together everyone from around the world, including these startups that are dialing around the world, and really give that exposure that we always have. Yeah, we have actually a lot of exciting announcements within the program that we'll get into shortly. So just as a bit of background, I've been at Plug and Play for about 5.5 years or so. I started the supply chain program. We had our first event back in March 2017, and we've had a lot of growth and amazing startups go through. A lot of the top companies like Flexport or Project 44, or some of these amazing entrepreneurs have gone through the program, or they participate in our events. And it's been great to see the expansion of startups in this industry, and even more so today because of COVID-19 and the challenges that we face and the need for automation, digitization across the supply chain. So we really feel that there's a lot of opportunities in the supply chain right now, and this program, I think, is more important than ever, which for us we see as a great opportunity. I'll get into kind of the background of Plug and Play for those that are new to Plug and Play. Our founder of Plug and Play, Saeed Hamidi, he's a very successful entrepreneur. He actually started several different companies and actually owns a conglomerate of real estate buildings as well in the Bay Area and also internationally. But one of his buildings in Silicon Valley was actually known as the Lucky Building here, because it actually housed all these kind of big logos you can see from their initial phases. Like Google got started from the founders, Larry and Sergey, grew up to 50 employees. Logitech's founder, Paraligi Zappacosta, grew in that building, eventually IPOing the company. And then our CEO kind of pinched himself and said, why am I not investing directly into these companies? And he ended up becoming one of the first investors in PayPal. Instead of taking about 2 years of rent, he put in about $100K investment. And as you can imagine, there's an enormous return from that investment. And then we had other companies like Danger and their founder, Andy Rubin, who went into the building. And he built the operating system on the T-Mobile Sidekick phone, the first kind of smart flip phone that a lot of people will remember. We invested about 400K into that company. They're bought by Microsoft for about 500 million. But then Andy Rubin went on to build Android and get connected to Google, which was inside of our building. And that's kind of our vision and what we've been doing ever since Saeed bought this 180,000 square foot building in Sunnyvale, was to really build this ecosystem of startups. And we still have that building today. It's very empty. I know because I live right across the street, but it's I think it's amazing that we've been able to expand this kind of in the digital environment. And also we have like these great networking platforms that we can use, like Remo later. So I look forward to networking with everyone later. But it's amazing that we can build these ecosystems, and that's kind of our vision, to do it on an industry per industry basis. And the supply chain sector, I think, has been a great kind of industry for us over the last few years. But Plug and Play is active in everything from healthcare to financial services to insurance to energy. We do have programs in all these different areas. So happy to connect you to those folks as well. Today, we work on kind of three main business models. So we have our accelerator programs, where we run over 50 of these acceleration programs globally. Each one has its own theme, where we kind of are able to connect the industry partners. It's always driven by the industry partners to the startups, that they can test and pilot and benefit from their technology. And then we have our corporate innovation program, where we actually work with these corporations to find the startups to really pilot and utilize the technologies. And I forgot to mention, in the accelerator program, a big part of it is mentoring. We really help the startups scale their businesses, connect to investors, and find those resources, because it's really challenging to build a successful startup. And then finally, venture capital. We are named one of the most active VCs in the world. We've been deploying over 200 investments a year on behalf of Plug and Play over the last few years. We have over 1,000 active portfolio companies. So that's really our core business and where we got started. So a lot of that branches on to venture capital. As you can see here, these are the supply chain offices that our team is working really well at a global level to connect the whole ecosystem, from the corporate partners, like our partners in Hamburg, like Shell and DB Schenker, are able to interact with our partners in Silicon Valley, like ExxonMobil, or the partners in Northwest Arkansas, like Walmart or Tyson Foods or JB Hunt. So we find it's really cool to connect this kind of global ecosystem at the supply chain level, as you can see in yellow, but also to our other offices that all have different industries focuses. Like we have a new office in Fargo in North Dakota, really focused on agricultural technology. New York's always been a hub for fintech and insurtech. And then Cleveland is a great kind of hub for healthcare. But we're able to bring this all to the Plug and Play ecosystem and connect the global kind of network together. On the next slide, you can see just these are actually the partners that we've signed up. And I'm excited to announce that we're continuing to grow the program in terms of partners despite COVID-19. So we're very appreciative of all the support in these challenging times by our partners to continue to innovate. And I think the need for innovation has never been more important, especially in terms of supply chain as it is today. You can see we did announce kind of a new office this year in the middle of COVID-19 with BASF. We're very grateful to the president of BASF Canada, Marcelo Liu, who had the vision to build kind of Toronto into a new hub for supply chain innovation. We also are about to announce, or have announced, we just don't have their logo rights yet, Canada Post. We have an event on Thursday with the COO of Canada Post talking about postal innovation and the need for plan automation and robotics across the postal networks. And we have a ton of postal services dialing in around the world. But we're really excited to have all these kind of dedicated hubs and continue to grow our offices, the location of our team members, and also the amazing kind of logos representing, as you can see, a lot of the transportation leaders, but also Fortune 500 companies from around the world. So on the next slide, you can see just the new partner announcements that we'll be making today. You'll hear from the three logos that you have there. We actually announced 5 new partners, which was our goal since the start of the year, kind of to bring on 5 new partners per program. So we've actually reached that goal. We just don't have logo rights from one, Canada Post, and then Growmark, another one we're waiting to announce as well. But you can see the Nexa is a new partner that we partnered with in Brazil. They're a leading mining company. We're very excited to run some innovation challenges for them across Peru, Brazil, and different parts of the world. Looking at different startups also in China. It's a really exciting partnership to work with this great mining company, as we are really excited to work from the mine to last mile deliveries at the consumer doorstep in our program. And then we also partner with ArcBest, a leading transportation provider, trucking company in Arkansas that actually joined the Arkansas program that we're super excited to work with and have a ton of buy-in, and they have a lot of dedication to investment in technology over the next few years. And then the last partner that we'll announce later is Savannah Economic Development Authority. Savannah is one of the leading ports in America on the East Coast, and it's a huge kind of hub for innovation, especially in the maritime sector and first mile logistics. So you'll hear more from Savannah kind of directly after this. I'm very proud of the amazing team that we have. We've been working, Carolina, everyone, super hard to run kind of more webinars than we ever have. And we've been keeping our partners super busy despite being in their homes and in this digital environment. These are some of the webinars that we've ran over this kind of batch that I'm excited about. Hydrogen's been a big trend we've seen in the market, and the need for kind of renewable energy. So we've been looking into that area a lot. Also, we've been having other webinars like with the World Bank around the digitization of the agricultural supply chain as well. So each one of these webinars had its own theme, and there's been a ton of engagement in each one of them. You can see here, these are just some of the faces I really wanted to thank for the program. These guys are not being paid by plug and play. They're kind of dedicating their time to this program. They're all kind of experts in their fields. They've either sold a startup, they're an investor, they're a previous corporate executive in the transportation space or in the supply chain network. And they dedicate their time to helping the startups in this program so they can mentor them. As you know, it's critical to have the right mentors as a startup. So we're grateful to be able to give startups access to this amazing mentor network. These are just the startups we have in the program. It's always a stage agnostic program. We do like to have a lot of seed companies, but also now we're seeing a trend for more Series A and B companies as they can provide more quick wins to the corporate community that we work with. But you can see it's also a very international group. A lot of European startups, a lot of startups across America. We're excited about Wakurobotics, which is the one investment we were able to execute throughout this program. The other startups, we either didn't come to terms or whatever, it didn't work out. But generally, we like to invest in a handful or one or two startups in each batch. And this batch, we invested in Wakurobotics. It's super interesting. Their founder was previously working at Zalando and attending some of our events through Plug and Play. And then he ended up going to the other side of the table and building this startup. And we just remembered his passion and his knowledge of robotics, and we're really excited about what he was doing. So we're excited. You'll hear more from Wakurobotics shortly. And then, yeah, just thank you to all the startups participating in this program. Wish I was in person with all of you guys, and it's always more fun that way, but we're still able to make these connections in the digital environment. We look forward to the networking. We look forward to hearing your pitches. Congratulations again to all the startups. It's not easy to be selected. We have a very rigorous process where we cut out startups very quickly if they don't satisfy the needs of our partners. So we wish all the startups success. Look forward to the events, and thank you everyone for your attention today. Pass it back to you, Harvey.
Thank you very much, Mike. So next up for our keynote, I'm happy to welcome Richard Ebach. He's the CIO of Americas at DB Schenker. Richard, welcome up to the stage. Let's see if you can get your camera and your mic working. Richard is responsible for the Americas IT organization, covering customer solutions, digitization, and core operations. He has joined the Americas regional team in 2014 and has been instrumental in establishing a lot of the collaborative culture, the agile operation, and the digitized approach for DB Schenker's customers, employees, and strategic partners. So Richard, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Harvey. Really glad to be here. Thank you for the introduction, and really pleased to share some of the vision we have at Schenker for the future of logistics, share a little bit about our story with startups, and also our partnership with Plug and Play. So it's great to be here. I'll also share a bit of a personal note. It was an interesting weekend for the EBOC household. We had lots of sniffles and fevers and coughs. And as Mike mentioned, we're in the time of COVID, so it's changed a lot of the focus and when I think of future of logistics as well. So we immediately on the weekend started thinking about, quarantine and isolation and how are we going to get tested. And so the parallels here is at the same time, my team has worked heavily on a massive project as part of our hybrid cloud strategy, a lift and shift of our data center over to a new co-location facility, and that was all happening at the same time. And we can really see that our focus can get split and changed during this interesting time. So I did want to share, I added a bit of a slide later on here. It doesn't have the great graphics like some of our other slides, but it really hit home with me that as we talk about the future of logistics, it's imperative that we think about what this impact is really going to be and how it does change a little bit of what we need to think about. So quite often I get asked what keeps me up at night, and obviously this weekend COVID was first and foremost, along with my kids, obviously with their coughs and taking care of them. So I thought heavily on the health and wellness of our frontline workers and really the future of logistics. What can we do to help support these frontline workers and keep them safe? Things like contact tracing and keeping third parties limited, and maybe even robotics to disinfect between shifts. There's lots of things we can do here. Then I thought a bit about the health, wellness, and engagement of our now remote workforces. How do we keep them engaged? How's our communication? How do we make town halls more interesting? How do we collect more information and surveys, make sure that they're happy and healthy while working at home with these different stresses? How do we do business without travel? It's an interesting time. We can't get on airplanes anymore, so we have to do different things for collaboration. How do we set up new sites? We've got to consider things like quarantine after travel. So lots of opportunity there. And how do we operate with an uncertain pandemic future? So things have shifted rapidly, things like budgets, our focus, and it's going to continue to change. So we all have to think and consider this as part of our future. And then it's not just about how we deal with the issues, it's also how do we thrive. And certainly we don't want to just focus on what we have to overcome, but also how we create opportunity. And here I can actually share one of the interesting engagements we have with a startup that's part of the network at Plug and Play, Amiv, which is a startup that's focused on virtual reality meeting. And this is one thing that we launched a POC on that we find pretty interesting, where you can have somebody walk around and do a tour of some of our facilities. And they're walking around with the 360 camera, and everybody else has a VR helmet on with avatars, and it's an interactive experience. And we're going to grow that POC now, I think, globally. So it's a very interesting and strange time. And then just wanted to share a little bit of that focus that really hit home over the weekend. So to get a little bit more onto who DB Schenker is, and share a little bit about this company that's almost 150 years old. As you can imagine, we've been through quite a few transitions, and certainly in a digital transformation transition now. And then you think about our presence in 130 countries and 2,000 locations. Anything that we need to scale and deploy is highly complex. And then when I look at that right side of the slide and 76,000 employees, and certainly when 8 months ago, a very different environment, we had 2,000 remote workers, and immediately overnight, I think we had about 20,000 employees go remote in a single day, basically, when the first restrictions came into play. And it's very important to think about this agility and flexibility. And certainly a lot of our strategy prepared us for that, luckily, with cloud services and SaaS, things that can scale rapidly. So very important for this future. If you're familiar, obviously this is a logistics event, so everybody should be pretty familiar with the products that we do, the warehousing, modes of freight. We are a 3PL. As a 3PL, that means that obviously we don't own the assets, we don't own the airplanes or the ships for the most part. So it's critical that we're really focused on data and the optimization and visibility of the data. And if you look at our verticals, it's pretty broad, so our solutions can be highly complex. So that's basically Schenker, and then we'll take a look at a little bit of our strategy and how we focus ourselves on this future. And I'll share our wheel here to take you around the wheel. We focus heavily on the center here at the hub. Number one, if you can see it, the stable, agile, and cyber secure. Obviously, these are the table stakes of IT. You have to get this right, or the rest doesn't really matter. So very key that we focus on that, and certainly a lot of opportunities for startups and engagements there. A lot of investment happening in cybersecurity right now. And then after we have that focus taken care of, we can focus a little bit more on enabling our business. And when I say enabling, we're very focused on productivity gaps, so doing what we do better. So I'll take you around the wheel here, and I look at number 2. So really this is our project management office. So it's selecting the right things to do, and we certainly focus on value, and we also focus heavily on picking smaller deliverables, value that we can return fast. So looking at 90-day projects, we try not to engage in the multi-year projects, and we leverage a lot of tools for visibility, keep our focus and finger on the pulse. If I go up to number 3, the efficiency of our enterprise IT platforms. So obviously a lot of insourcing here. We also have something we call the component model. We're very focused on creating reusable applications and things or components, which allow us to drive value multiple times over and develop once and reuse. And then I look at number 4, and it's very clear when I talked about how we had to scale that remote workforce, that we had to have that infrastructure, the hybrid cloud, the SaaS, and using a lot of partners in order to be able to scale like we did. When I look at number 5, employer of choice, we all know that this has dramatically changed. We're no longer in those offices, and so we have to be very focused on how we engage and communicate with our teams, and a new reality of completely onboarding people remotely into our culture and our company. So lots of opportunities I feel there that we can take advantage of. And then when we look at number 6, optimize and really leverage our resource and spend. So here we're focused really heavily on our big data and our data sciences, and keep a ton of visibility and optimization on all of our assets and resources, heavily leveraging things like dashboards to keep a very high level of focus on all the different operational processes. Move down now into the transformation IT. And this is really where we're focused on changing the way we do things. So challenging the status quo a little bit, looking for those opportunity gaps and really drive new things. So if you look at number 7, we're heavily focused on new business models. So some of the things that we've released recently is our IoT platform, where we're putting devices on freight and tracking in real time. And through a new platform we developed, we also have 3D printing, where you can upload your specs and your drawings. And basically we use our partner network to build those prototypes or those emergency replacement parts and ship to the door. So some key new business models that we're leveraging in the market. And then I look at number 8, the data analytics and the artificial intelligence. So we have a data sciences team that we've built up, and certainly leveraging partnerships on how we can really analyze and optimize things in real time and inject this into our operations and our systems. to change the way we're doing business. Some of that advanced analytics. When I look at number 9, generating value from the innovation and digitization, certainly this is one of the key topics, and certainly the partnership with Plug and Play emphasizes what we're doing here and building these partnerships, working with startups, and really drive innovation into the organization of what's almost a 150-year-old company. So with that strategy, we really look into the market and some of those signals that are happening on what's changing in the industry, and we need our mid and long-term ambitions so that we can focus these partnerships and what we're driving towards. So I'll take us through here, and basically these ambitions are ways we feel the industry will change. And then we look at these, we look at what I say is people, process, and technology, and we look at it in that order. So first, we want to make sure we have the right people in place with the right vision and the right change agents. And then we want to make sure we have the right processes to enable and to really drive that business. And then we'll look at the technology sort of as the last component to really add the value and deliver it into the market. So once we have these ambitions, we start working towards them, and certainly the Infrrd, as I mentioned, we're in a digital transformation now, and we've built a platform, the Connect4 platform, that's heavily focused on user experience, heavily focused on automation of our back-end processes, and all online type of business. Then I look at marketplace, and we've seen a lot of disruption on various industries, and that disruption, if you look at markets like Airbnb, the Ubers, and the Amazons, a lot of times they're displacing intermediaries, and in the freight world, freight forwarders like Schenker certainly are intermediaries. We certainly feel that there's a high level of complexity and that freight forwarding isn't going away, but we certainly look to where we can add marketplaces to add that value into our customer environments, and where we can partner with marketplaces, where we can develop marketplaces and engage and bridge them into our product suite. The third ambition, our virtual SCM. The idea here is that more and more this idea of digital twinning, creating copies of what's happening in the real world and using it for optimization, we certainly see that playing in the freight forwarding and logistics space, creating a complete copy of a supply chain across various freight forwarders. Of course, you need the end-to-end view, and then applying that data sciences to really evaluate, mitigate risk, optimize in real time, and change flows as needed. The next piece we look at is this logistics ecosystem that keeps growing. We see a lot of data. We certainly sit on a ton of data. We're certainly developing new organic data with things like IoT and these 3D printing business models. And we really want to look at how we leverage that value and working with our customers and partners to see how we can build out maybe value-added services based on that. The last piece is autonomous transport. We're very interested in autonomous transport. There's a very clear reason that there's a heavy amount of reliance on capacity, especially in ground freight. That if there's not, and certainly not enough truckers and drivers to handle a lot of the demand, we really feel that autonomous will help with this, and semi-autonomous. And a lot of times that these are electric vehicles. We're seeing some hydrogen vehicles, which I think Mike mentioned as well. And we certainly have our eye on this space as well to develop out. So with these ambitions and these technologies, we've deployed 2 innovation labs in our environment. And really when we're looking at the innovation labs, we're looking at different horizons of technology. There's certainly some things that we feel are very short-term and some things that are very long-term. And the long-term ones can be somewhat science projects. We really want to test something out, see how it works. And that will flow into our Fraunhofer partnership in our lab in Europe. Some of the crazy things that happen there may never see the light of day. A lot of them do graduate, and then we try and take them into the business. One way we do that is with our partnership with our innovation lab in Houston with Cisco. And this is here for us to play with in the US. And we'll graduate some technologies, and we'll also do some of our POCs in this location where we can really try the technology in a live environment. And that gives us a chance to iterate through technology. And I certainly can think of some things like augmented reality and visual picking with the augmented visual glasses. We went through about 5 different vendors and hardware. As you can imagine, when you're trying it on the actual floor, the value is pretty clear on the use case, but when you're giving it to people to use on the floor for an 8-hour shift, things you didn't think about before, like the weight of the glass on one side, or the heat that it generates, or that somebody finishes an 8-hour shift and then hands it to somebody else, were all things that were really great to try in the environment of the lab itself. So we rely heavily on this, and we really hope to graduate the technology and the POCs into what we can drive through the overall business. And what you'll see at the link at the bottom there is an actual video of some of the interesting stuff that Fraunhofer's working on right now. So if you have a chance, please view that, because it does really show some of the cool things, like drones that not only fly but can roll on the ground, and some of the preview work on something I'm going to share next, which is our video analytics that started in Fraunhofer with some of our partnerships and our data scientists. So this one I wanted to highlight. I really believe in this as a part of the future of logistics. The video analytics, for me, I think will change a lot of what's happening, at least to inject some real time. So that if I think about one of the business problems we need to focus on is what's really happening in facilities like a warehouse. And it's a difficult problem to tackle in real time. Certainly you can analyze things, or you can have people walk the floor. But what we wanted to do was make it more automated. And this was really a joint collaboration across the board with open source software, with a big vendor like Cisco giving us hyperlocal Wi-Fi. We had another startup we worked with, Logistiview here. They gave us these digital devices that we could pick routes and assign to people and track. And then we married this all up together with our deep learning team, and we really focused on what we could identify in real time with video cameras. And as you can see in the picture there, what was really interesting was that we could identify things like full pallets and forklifts and people in real time. And that gave us an interesting data point that we could start working with. So as you can imagine, now that we've got this asset, we can start in real time with a camera seeing that, say, a specific dock door is starting to get busy and overloaded. We can start redirecting trucks to a different dock. We can see that somebody left a forklift in one of the aisles, or there's a pallet dropped, and we can redirect people in real time. We can really start injecting things to provide a lot of operational advantage. So I wanted to highlight on this because it shows a great collaboration from big companies, small companies, startups, and some of our own internal data sciences and innovations. We're quite pleased with this advancement. I also want to focus a little bit on some of our other partnerships and startups. So some of these startups, and I'll go through this, it's a small faction of some of the 60 we're actually cooperating with already. What I wanted to share more specifically on these ones, these are some interesting use cases. What 3 words, if you're not familiar with them, they basically took the whole planet and they broke it up into 3-meter squares. And each 3-meter square, they effectively gave a label with 3 words, 3 simple, everyday words that you could find anywhere, like house, car, driveway. And when you add those 3 words together, it gives you that 3-meter block. Now you can imagine in logistics, when you have a truck pulling up to a warehouse, instead of just giving it the address, we can give it the 3-meter block in front of the specific door we want it to pull up to. Or you can imagine in parcels, if we're delivering parcels, you want it to hide on the side of the house, you can give the 3-meter block that's at your side door instead of the front door. So lots of applications for us. And we've certainly injected this into some of our freight on the ground side. Another one I wanted to highlight was our Gideon Brothers. Gideon Brothers is an AGV or robotics play inside the warehouse. And this one was interesting. We put this in one of our our Leipzig branches, and certainly with the pandemic and the impacts we're facing today, the idea here was an employee, as they're working and they're picking and packing, could push a button and the AGV can pick up a pallet for replenishment on some of the resources that they need. So you can imagine that helps us limit some of the interaction. It helps to automate some of the tasks and not rely on people coming into close contact. So another great one for us there. If you're familiar with Infrrd, it's an autonomous and semi-autonomous truck that we have in Sweden. And it's also green, it's electric. And I think we're one of the first companies that were able to get the rights to drive this truck on a real live road. The semi-autonomous is interesting. We can actually have a remote driver if we need to engage, and you have to go through all the same licenses and things like that. So very interesting project. We're working there to see how we can leverage more autonomous and more green vehicles, as we certainly see in the future of logistics a lot of heavier restrictions on urban delivery. And then finally, Volocopter, which is one of our newer announcements, which is a very large passenger-based drone that they're now releasing what they call the Volo drone, which will actually be able to transport pallets. So us as a freight forwarder, dealing mostly in pallet-sized freight is very interesting for us. Again, for the electric and urban delivery, when some restrictions might come into play. But also certainly we're very interested in things like rescue or medical services as well. So we're very interested to see how that one plays out. So I'm going to close on the how Schenker looks at engaging with startups, and certainly through this partnership with Plug and Play, we're very excited to meet. And I'll stick online to view some of the startups that made it through this batch and join the Remo room, which is very cool to have a virtual conference floor. Very excited for that as well. So when I look at how we engage, so our market intelligence, we're obviously looking for those signals to see how the industry is changing, what startups are coming out. We have a database with 3,900 startups that we're constantly analyzing to see how we can bridge and adapt. We have a high level of practical experience. We're looking to do POCs. We have a team that's dedicated to doing these POCs. And what we're looking for is coming out of that with a white paper that really helps us address what's the value and how do we scale it in an enterprise the size of Schenker. There's also investment opportunities. We have our DB Digital Ventures arm with about €100 million investment fund, which we're certainly looking to invest if there's synergies to help grow as we build a stronger partnership. And of course, at the end, we are a freight forwarding and logistics company, and we're very experienced in shipping things like electric trucks and giant drones, and certainly happy to work with all of you in your fast-growing companies here. So I hopefully left a fair bit of time that I can entertain some questions. If you're interested in working with Schenker and being part of our journey for the future of logistics, I certainly recommend that you email the startups at dbschenker.com. That's where the dedicated team can pick it up. But I'm also here for any follow-up questions or chats. So I want to say thank you very much for the time here today, and I greatly appreciate it and look forward to hearing more about the exciting companies that are coming up.
Thank you very much, Richard. Tons of insight there, and noticed a couple of companies that you're working with that are in our portfolio as well. So folks, if you'd like to connect with Richard, please join us for the networking session later. It's going to be a great time to have, you know, a little bit of a deeper dive, a little bit of a little bit more one-on-one time in the networking session on Remo with Richard, and he can share a lot more about what they're doing at DB Schenker. So a huge thanks to you, Richard. Thank you very much for that presentation. There was, again, a lot of insight into what you guys are working on. So that was really, really rich and engaging. So thank you. So next up, we are going to dive right into the startup presentations, where we're going to begin with our first group in the robotic space. Really happy to welcome up Flyability, who is going to be delivering kind of our first presentation this morning.
Thank you, Harvey. Good morning, everybody. My name is Alex, and I'm Vice President of Sales for Flyability USA. We manufacture drones for indoor industrial environments. Next slide, please. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about Flyability. Next slide, please. Which essentially we're founded on one solid vision that goes throughout everything we do, and that's that we do not want any more humans doing dangerous jobs. Next slide, please. So what are dangerous jobs? We target mainly 3 different types of jobs, one being work in confined spaces. These are areas where you don't necessarily have multiple means of entry or exit. It's also spaces where rescue missions are typically extremely difficult and often end in failure. We also look at work at heights. So this could be working on scaffolding or working on rope access, as you see here, and work in hazardous environments, which for our case is, for example, areas with high dose of radiations or things like that. Next slide, please. Now, how do we do that? Well, Flyability was founded in 2014 following the incident at the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster, where essentially humans weren't able to enter because of the amount of radiation. Ground robots weren't able to navigate that field because of the amount of rubble that was on the ground. And so the only way to get through it was through air. That was the initial solution that we created, a drone that was able to fly in an indoor environment without any GPS signal. And from there, we've expanded significantly. Today, we're a team of 90 people. We have 1,000 drones out on the field around the world and counting, out to 400 customers with a historic turnover of $25 million US. We also have a network of resellers and partners around the globe. We have 35 of them who are capable of providing services and training for our technology. Next slide, please. Now, the industries we work in are multiple and varied. We work in oil and gas, power generation, chemicals, mining, public safety, but we also work in a lot of different other industries. For the most part, anywhere where you might have to work at heights, work in confined spaces, in an indoor environment is somewhere where you might find us. Next slide, please. We work in a whole variety of, next slide, please. We work in a wide variety of assets, like I was saying. Anywhere indoor and dangerous is somewhere where we can help out. Now, next slide, please. If you want to just have a quick overview of our market, utilities is by far our biggest application to date, just because of the numerous indoor spaces they have and they need to inspect. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. As you can see, our turnover has been climbing year after year. This year, of course, like for everybody, we've seen a little slowdown initially in the year. But fortunately for us, our technology comes at a time of need, and it answers a lot of the problems that companies are dealing with during this COVID period. Next slide, please. Our clients are, for the most part, asset owners, but also service providers for those companies who cannot have the internal drone program. Next slide, please. And next slide immediately. Now, let me tell you a little bit about indoor drones. There are 3 main benefits to using this type of technology. The first one is improvement in safety, and I'm going to touch on that a bit more in a second, but essentially, you're avoiding the risk totally by sending a drone instead of a person. Second is reduction in downtime. You're not going to have to send people in. You're not going to have to put people at heights. You're going to be able to fly through an environment, and that's going to cut down significantly, and that also has an impact on cost, whereas you're not building scaffolding, you're not having extended downtime, you're going to have plenty of time to, or you're going to make a considerable saving. Next slide, please. Now, if we look at the safety aspect of it, you may be familiar with this chart, which is the hierarchy of hazard controls. Essentially, today we can have a control on PPE and administrative controls. With the drone, you can eliminate the hazard completely. You're not working at heights, you're not working in confined spaces, thus you're eliminating the risk. Next slide. This also has an impact on the duration, or in this case of an outage, but this applies to really anywhere where we work, where if you're not needing to send somebody up scaffolding, you're not having to send somebody up a forklift or anything like that, you're saving time, a lot of time even. Next slide. And as I was saying earlier, this saving on time also has a saving on budget. For this example here of a 500 megawatt coal-fired boiler, essentially the cost is going to be linked to downtime, which is minimized by using our technology. Next slide, please. This also has an impact on a lot of different industries and applications. I think for this discussion specifically, the main advantages is the fact that this drone can fly in indoor environments, be stable and easy to fly even for somebody who's not a seasoned drone operator. It can fly in very tight spaces. The drone measures 15.7 inches, meaning that it'll be able to go through even tight shelves and Next slide, please. Now about the drone itself, next slide, please. The Helios 2, which is our current solution, as I was saying, is designed for these tight indoor spaces that don't have GPS signal, but we also made it intuitive to fly, meaning we have sensors around the drone keeping it stable. Interestingly, or what might be interesting for you is that we have a very good camera on there. It's a 4K camera, and we're able to get up very close physically to an actual surface and even collide with it, meaning that there is really no risk in case of a collision. What is also worth mentioning at this point is that this is one of the only drones that's approved to fly over people in Canada, for example. The fact that it's lightweight and that it has a cage around it means even in case of total failure, and if it should, fall on somebody or something like that, the cage is going to protect the person and the drone itself. Now, next slide, please. I realized too late that I guess the videos will play for you. This is an example of a demonstration we did in the UK for how the drone behaves in a warehouse type of environment. Now, we're not seeing tons here, but what you're seeing is that the drone is able to get very close to the different items to even get a look inside of the boxes. The camera, the lighting all work together on making any feature highly noticeable. Next slide, please. What you also see this video here is a similar flight through a warehouse environment. In this case, we were trying to go look at machinery at the top of the drone. And finally here, the data processing side of things, we've streamlined it as much as possible without the benefits of GPS. Next slide, please. And to close on all this, just to give you a little insight on where we're heading, obviously automation is front and center in our designs. And if you have any other questions, all my contact information is here. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alex. And just a quick reminder to everyone, we're going to be sending around a poll towards the end of everyone's 4-minute presentation that's going to ask if you'd like to get connected with the particular startup. So just let us know, yes, no. If you don't want to respond, you can just exit out of the box. But that way our team can go to work on trying to manage those introductions. So next up, happy to welcome up Wakurobotics. Welcome, Sander.
Thanks, Harvey. Hi, everyone. Wakurobotics, an independent player that helps companies to identify the best use cases for robotics. Next slide, please. We're from Berlin, German startup. So we're talking about mobile robots here, mostly for warehouse and production environments. And what we see is that this type of automation is much more flexible than the traditional means of automation. So if you're thinking conveyor belts, these kind of solutions, you can imagine that if your setup changes as a warehouse, that you have to also completely reconfigure these kind of conveyor belts. With mobile robots, it's much more easier to adapt and to scale up and down, which leads to, in some cases, already very substantial cost reductions, especially cart pulling, for example, is something where we see very positive economics. Another thing that we see is that warehouse operators want to reduce the number of people on the floor, thereby reducing the risk of contamination. Next slide, please. Just a really quick overview. So if we're talking mobile robots, what are we talking about? We're talking about forklifts that no longer need a person driving it. We have solutions for pick support and commissioning. I guess you've all seen these kind of movies about Amazon, for example. Then there's, of course, cleaning and this transport of cars that I already mentioned. Next slide, please. And this is all great, but we see that the customers we're talking to, my co-founder Victor was leading warehouse automation for Zalando, mostly focused on robotics. It's very difficult to get an overview of what kind of robotic solutions are out there. Then it's very difficult to identify a use case. Then the next step is, okay, so how would the business, like the economics, work for this case? Then you need to get in touch with these robot vendors. Then you need to start thinking about what kind of software infrastructure you need, preventing you to be locked in by some of the vendors. And then you'll be thinking about dashboards to optimize and even think about flexibly scaling up and down. And what we see is that there's not a single robot vendor out there who can basically cover all of that. So we see a huge need for a player halfway. Next slide, please. So that's us. We see ourselves as the partner along the entire customer journey. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? It means that we have tools that help you to select the best robot. We organize POCs. We do the implementation with our partners, and we make sure with smart software solutions that you are able to efficiently operate your robot fleet and also optimize it. Next slide, please. So the first part, the solution design, selection of robots, really putting together a solution that works. That's something that we partly offer online. We have like a robot configurator that you can check out on our website, which will give you, after 15 minutes, a very good indication of the kind of robotic solution that would fit best for you, and also the economics that come with it. We can extend that by doing more traditional consulting, and eventually really prepare an offer from you and get you in touch with the robot vendor and the other parties that are important for the entire setup, such as the software providers. Next slide, please. Another thing that we've done is we've created the first database overview of all the mobile robots out there for warehouse environments. There are more than 100 vendors listed here, and you can basically filter down on use cases or other kind of specs, and this helps you to get a really quick overview. And lots of the software tools that we developed also tap into this database that's behind it. And through this website, you can get in touch with us, and you can basically buy or rent mobile robots. Next slide, please. So then there's Baku Sense. So what we've seen while doing POCs, that most of the fleet management software that comes with the robot vendors is often very kind of deep tech and very focused on orchestrating the robots, but there's very little reporting functionality towards the end user, which would be the robot nanny, or also like on higher management to see. So you can imagine that once you have 300 robots from 10 different vendors, that there's a need to keep an overview of the performance of all those robots, and that's what we provide. Next slide, please. This is kind of a snapshot how that looks like. Next slide, and then we can round up. So if you want to, if you're a warehouse operator and you want to get an overview of robotic solutions that are out there, please get in touch. We'll be happy to lead you through that. If you already have a fleet of robots deployed and you want to kind of optimize them and get more insight, then please also get in touch with us. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you very much, Sander. Next up, I'm delighted to welcome One Robotics.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you very much for having us today. One is well, first off, my name is John Albano. I am a sales director at One Robotics. We are an AI vision software company in the industrial market space. So we are essentially the eyes and brain of what the robot is going to see. We take that information, which is coordinates, and then send that back to the robot, and the robot controller takes that and then goes and gets the package. Next slide, please. So you can see here, this is one of our applications in FedEx Express, and this is a simulation application where we're picking and placing FedEx Smalls. We've created, of course, an AI model for this population of packages that is being picked. This is another one of our applications at MSC Direct, which is a tooling distributor in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And you could see that here what the robot is doing is picking and placing from a tote into a box. This third video here is the depalletization application that we have as well. This also utilizes our Yonder technology, which allows a crew chief to pick if our vision software falls below a certain level of confidence while in operation. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we'd like to point out is, who's talking about us and where are we kind of in the marketplace. And FedEx and MSC have been two outstanding partners for us. Both are utilizing our solution in a very similar manner, where we've created an AI model for them, and we've worked with Yaskawa both on the robotics side and the integration side, and have put together a full solution where the AI vision system is creating a very efficient workflow for them, and also utilizing our Yonder product as well. Yonder gives the ability for the robot to phone a friend if and when the vision system falls below a certain level of confidence, and that goes to a crew chief, which will allow you to get 100% accuracy in picking almost out of the gate. So both of those customers have been success stories for us. Next slide, please. So what is our strategy moving forward, and where have we been successful? We've gotten very good traction with the big 6 retailers and shippers that are out there, and we're beginning to get more and more traction with the Next 94. So logos that we're pretty much everyone is fairly familiar with. We've done a fair amount in the postal sector as well to this point. USPS has been a partner of ours, and we've worked with them in an R&D capacity in their facility in Washington, D.C., and look to do a bit more with some other postal carriers around the world. Next slide, please. So why are we winning, and how are we positioned? We are hardware agnostic, so that means that we can work with any robot arm, any gripper, and any integrator that is in the industry. We view ourselves as the glue in that scenario, and with our Yonder solution, the solution itself is a stacked solution. So we typically do a 2D or 3D scan. That gets us to about 80% of the way there. And then we create an AI model, lay that on top, and then the last % or 2% of the exceptions go to a Yonder call, which is a human being that could intervene and send in a manual pick. Next slide, please. So we have right here, we have each picking, induction, and depalletization, which we saw some videos on previous. Pick one is our vision software license, and that is a license that is perpetual, and that goes one-to-one with each robot, and then that is combined with Yonder, which will give us 100% in terms of accuracy. So I think that I know that we only have a few minutes. I'll end that there, and then ask if there's any questions at all.
Thank you very much, John. Folks,
Sure.
always, if you would like to connect with John, let us know by the poll. And then he'll also be in the networking session during Remo at the end of the presentation, where you can find him and have some one-on-one conversation. So thank you, John.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Okay, next up, I am happy to welcome up Anne-Marie Stephen from Fabric.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anne-Marie. Thanks for the intro, Harvey. I am with Fabric, and we do micro-fulfillment. So think of it as fast fulfillment on demand. So next slide, please. A brief introduction to our company, just to kind of set the table here. We were launched in 2015 in Tel Aviv. We have our research and development teams there that do software and robotics. Is based in Tel Aviv. Our global headquarters is based in New York City, which is where I am based. We are backed by some terrific investors, some that you might recognize, including Innovation Endeavors, which is Eric Schmidt's fund, and Kraft Heinz, Evolve Ventures. We announced them at the end of the first quarter of this year. So we've raised about $140 million in equity. We have 15 sites under development, and we have both a grocery and health and beauty drugstore chain live in Tel Aviv that are expanding. Over the summer, we announced our partnership with Fresh Direct, which is pure play e-commerce grocer. We could not be more excited about that. And we continue to expand that relationship, and certainly more announcements to come this year. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our solution. I have some videos here. So what is, micro fulfillment? What is on-demand fast fulfillment? For us, we're a purpose-built solution for on-demand. So everything you see here is proprietary to fabric. So the design is exclusive to fulfilling quick orders quickly. So that being said, so an order comes in and it can be filled. It's a single pick goods to person each solution with 5 primary components. We have our shelving area, our lift robot, our ground robots, touch points, terminals, and that's it. So there's a few key things to keep in mind for what we do, which make us very unique, is that it's very modular and flexible, meaning a few different things. One is that it can fit into very small spaces. So it can be as small as 5,000 square feet up to 10,000 or 30,000 square feet. It could have a 10-foot clear ceiling height up to a 30-foot clear ceiling heights and everything in between. It's also flexible in that it can be expanded as your company grows, as your demand for fast fulfillment increases, so can the solution. It can expand with you. So basically, you don't need to buy everything on the first day. You can have a solution design that will allow you to add on as you grow. So that's very unique to what we offer. So each one of these, as you can see too, it's a conveyorless system. Each one of our totes holds up to 1 to 8 SKUs. So it's optimized for volumetrics of the products. Each one of our components is multi-skilled, and we're optimized for space utilization, as I said. So this can be flexible in so many ways in terms of where it is located. It could be a dark store, it could be a repurposed store, a building, it could be inside of a DC. So we have multiple use cases for this particular solution. Next slide, please. So I put this in here because I wanted to show you something in operation. So this is a time-lapse video of one of our Tel-Aviv sites. You can see here that actually you'll notice as the video plays that this is the site is a repurposed Adidas location actually. So an order comes in and immediately starts going into the pick process. Now, when this was taken, this time lapse is of a 7-minute, actually this order is fulfilled in under 6 minutes. And now our fulfillment time is under 5 minutes, and we continue to improve and iterate on that. So again, it's a purpose-built full stack hardware software solution made for fast fulfillment and on-demand orders, single pick eaches. You can see how the order is then sequenced, brought to the picker, which will soon become a robotic arm. You can see how the totes are optimized. We do a quick QA and into the order tote it goes. It's very fast and very simple, very quick. So what our customers like about what we're offering is the flexibility to do fast fulfillment from any location that they kind of choose, a variety of use cases from B2B to wholesale fulfillment to direct to consumer, and out the door it goes. So next slide, please. Simply put, we offer 2 products. One is our platform product, which means most of our grocers actually prefer this solution where they can own and operate. And then we are also launching our first Brooklyn location, our first site, sorry, in our MSC network in Brooklyn, which is launched this month, and we'll be, we have customers in that location. We'll be building out that network throughout the United States in the coming quarters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. And everyone, again, if you'd like to connect with Fabric, she will be in the networking session afterwards. Okay, so we are now going to move into our second group, and these are companies that are focused on document processing and digitization. So very happy to welcome up Photon Commerce to kick us off. Hey, Michael.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks a lot for your time, and happy to introduce Photon Commerce. What we do is that we can capture all of your critical data in your supply chain. Next slide, please. So let's face it that supply chains today have been turned upside down due to companies like this. But there's a dirty little secret that there's still a lot of errors, a lot of manual work, a lot of paperwork still in the supply chain, up and down. Next slide, please. The problem is that there's over $100 billion worth of loss that's happening in the supply chain due to just waste, errors, mistakes, paper, and excessive labor costs. And many of that comes from these documents in the supply chain: packing slips, bills of lading, invoices. Next slide, please. So what we do is that we're a solution that turns all that paper, all those PDFs that your teams, your receiving teams, your warehousing teams are receiving into actionable intelligence. That means taking POs, invoices, packing slips, bills of lading, even customs forms, turning that into a live collaboration app so you can chat directly with your suppliers, engage them, and prevent errors before they become real costs. Next slide. We work with over 100 businesses today in the supply chain, as well as in the financial services sector for supply chain finance, including First Data, Fiserv, Microsoft, partnered with UiPath and NVIDIA as well. What we deliver is that we can speed up workflows compared to manual processing about 5 times on average, lower the error rates and loss 20%, and even result in lower labor costs as well. Next slide, please. We can capture and validate all of the suppliers' invoices and shipments with a simple API, as well as a mobile app and a web app. So you just drag and drop any PDF, any document into our app, and it extracts all that data, gets it into your ERP or WMS system. Next slide, please. So it works as a mobile app here with the drop-in API for even bills of lading, proof of deliveries, rate confirmations for transportation or for warehousing. Next slide. You can turn any static PDF into a live collaboration app so that all your suppliers can get visibility into all of your shipments and orders and payments. Next slide. You can chat with your suppliers as well and reconcile any differences in real time. Next slide. This represents the fastest way to send and receive payments as well. You just start integrating payments so that any invoices can be auto-paid. Next slide. How we're different is that we provide the highest accuracy of document understanding in the entire industry, do even handwriting, multiple languages, and deploy pretty much instantly within a day, sometimes within a week or 2 weeks. Next slide, please. We bring structured communication around a central source of truth. So instead of having a ton of paper flying out everywhere, we get that all into the same place so that there's no more errors. Next slide. How it works is that we scan those invoices, and then the service synchronizes all that data, extracts all that data, and checks for errors, does address lookups, and then vendors and your customers can see the same data as well. Next slide. Today, over 100 customers using us have processed over $50 million worth of goods just this year, and it has resulted in over $1 million worth of savings for companies. Next slide. In terms of the team, we have folks from Amazon. One person was VP of Amazon Fulfillment. Another person has 3 exits in the retail and supply chain space as well, including an IPO. Next slide. What we bring is speed, velocity, veracity, and visibility into your supply chain. Thanks a lot. Next slide. Feel free to reach out at partnerships@photoncommerce.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Michael. We appreciate your time. Next up, we are welcoming up Handl and Alexi. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. And I'm Alex, and at Handl, we help companies to fully automate paperwork, data extraction, and classification at scale. Next slide, please. So what we found out that nowadays companies still heavily rely on paper documents, and there are lots of complications there, like not ideal quality of images, floating structure, handwritten text, stamps, marks, and multiple languages. Next slide, please. So all of these complexities still imply manual work on the client side, because even if you automate digitalization of documents using, let's say, OCR or any other automation solution, there is still need to cross-check the results. And manual work is slow, it's expensive, it's inaccurate, it restricts scaling, and what is more important, it distracts management from their core focus, like enhancing product and pushing business development. So that's why we develop Handl, a one-stop shop solution that covers the full function from the step when we receive the images of documents and to the reconciliation into a system with a structured, clear data Next slide, please. So we made this possible by simply merging deep learning algorithms that cover the full pipeline from like images to data extraction with the humans in the loop component, which we use to cross-check the results only where is needed. Next slide, please. So how it works. You can stream us any possible documents. And at first step, our algorithms, they identify the exact pages of exact documents, crop them out, then we enhance the quality, rotate them, find all the needed fields, variables, attributes. So we crop them, and then comes data extraction part. For this, we use our proprietary technology of OCR. Next slide, please. And only where is needed, we have an option to attract workers. It could be a crowd that we provide, or your internal employees, to cross-check the results only where is needed. And for this, we developed the whole infrastructure, like interfaces and a quality control technology. Next slide, please. And this merge of deep learning algorithms with both humans in the loop in real time allows us not only to adapt any new type of document within a days, but also to provide you with the superhuman accuracy of data extraction in real time. And on the client side, it always means one of four general values. First is a cost reduction in means of automation. Second is we build the bridge to the accurate structured data to operate with. Fourth is that we make it faster any paperwork related processes, especially decision making. And fourth is that you can fully outsource this function to us, so no need for any management supervision. You don't need to think of it at all. We work with different kinds of documents, like vendor bill, delivery orders. We are happy to discuss any complicated documents that you have. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We have a solid track of working with companies from financial area, from insurance, and from logistics and other companies. Next slide, please. And here I want to very briefly highlight these values that I just mentioned, like cost reduction, accuracy, and so on some examples. So here we provided a superhuman accuracy with extremely high SLA. Next slide, please. So in healthcare, we were the only one company that were able to automate the new type of document, I mean, COVID-19 test forms just in 2 weeks. And we reduced processing time by more than 50 times. Next slide, please. For insurance company, we just reduced operational costs by 53%. And next slide. So working with these complicated documents. And the last slide, please. So yeah, I'm more than happy to discuss any of your cases. Please reach me out using this email, or we'll meet at our desk. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, I'm happy to welcome up Infrrd.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Harvey. Thanks a lot. And thanks to the Plug and Play team for having us. So Infrrd is an intelligent document processing platform. And so we are also one of the leading players in the document processing space, as this category is all about. And so, I'll quickly cover in these next few minutes on how we're different. Here is a high-level summary. We help extract insights from a wide variety of documents, such as any kind of forms, including insurance, as well as a variety of customs and supply chain logistics forms, invoices, receipts, purchase orders. We can handle 37 international languages, including most major European and Asian languages. We are also unique in that we can handle a wide variety of visual information, such as graphs, we can digitize entire graphs, we can handle handwritten text, signatures, mixed text, stamps, seals, as well as complex tables like those found on multi-line invoices, balance sheets, etc. Next slide, please. So most organizations are still stuck with inefficient, labor-intensive OCR technologies. And they work in a very disparate bunch of systems that don't talk to each other very well or do not learn from each other. Like, for example, you'll have an OCR technology, a different data store, a different business rules engine, and corrections are happening offline. None of these are really learning from each other. Next slide. When Infrrd comes into, next slide, please. When Infrrd comes into the picture, we help consolidate all of these various, sorry, previous slide, please. We help consolidate the various different systems such as document classification, extraction, validation, data store, as well as the corrections workflow and business rules engine, all in one single system. And we are one of the very few systems that can do this. The result is that all of these components can talk to each other very efficiently and learn from each other, so that when any mistakes are made by the system repeatedly for a few times, and those corrections are made on top of it, the machine learning models get retrained and they don't repeat those same mistakes over and over again. The net result is that 80 to 85% of documents are fully automated in straight through processing for our clients, and they see material improvements in automation and cost reductions. Next slide, please. So this is how we do it. We are able to ingest, classify, extract, validate documents, and our system relies on model creation in the beginning based on past sample documents. Next slide, please. We are different from a lot of OCR players in the fact that we use NLP, tagging, computer vision, and predictive modeling. A lot of these are patent pending technologies that are unique to us. Next slide, please. We'll quickly cover a few different use cases. Our platform is used by some of the major invoice processing companies to process millions of invoices every month. Next slide. We are also used by 2 of the top 10 expense management companies. Here you can see an example of a crumpled receipt being digitized. Next slide. And we work with a lot of large banking, financial services, and insurance companies, saving them millions of dollars. Next slide. We also we count large industrial conglomerates like GE and ABB as our clients. They use us to process RFPs that are 200, 300-page long RFPs. And I know a lot of large corporate partners also want that reassurance of a proven startup that has worked with other Fortune 500 companies. So we're happy to share these are as referenceable clients of ours. Next slide, please. We can process very complex PNID and engineering diagrams as well. I know we're almost running out of time, so next slide, please. With that, what I will say is that we have a variety of other use cases and differentiators. We're happy to discuss those at our table post this session. And you can also reach out to us at infrrd.ai, which is infrrd.ai. Thanks a lot for your time today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, I'm happy to welcome up ClearLaw.
Hi, can you hear me? Good morning. Great, thanks for having me today. My name is Jordan Rittenauer, I'm co-founder of ClearLaw, and we're helping businesses accelerate contracting. Next slide, please. We've been hearing for a long time about artificial intelligence eliminating jobs, but the reality is we're already living in a world where AI is augmenting human decision-making and improving performance. Been in this world for a few years. This has been a fundamental shift for a variety of industries and business departments. Next slide, please. It's creating some serious winners. So the ability to make use of massive amounts of data to supplement human decision-making and to coach for improvement has been huge for companies that are using tools like Gong, Clary, Marketo. These are all tools that improve the sales and marketing funnel, but as deal volume and velocity has increased, legal teams fall further and further behind. This is tough because in so many organizations, they were already the bottleneck. Next slide, please. So that's where we come in. We're providing an API to get your legal team up to speed, and deal teams, procurement. We help each organization with their specific contract risk assessment and analysis needs. So we're making use of the most advanced deep learning models developed specifically for contract language. We've got built-in reprocessing capabilities that allow us to develop and apply additional use cases depending on what your needs are. It's highly flexible, it's modular to fit into each organization's workflow. And we're seeing time to value in days rather than months or years like maybe you've seen before in other AI applications that take some time to get return on investment. Next slide, please. What does this mean for you? So we're making use of historical contracting experience and information available at your organization to reduce closing timelines. We're seeing a 5x acceleration in review speed. So you're closing deals faster. You're also closing better deals by retaining and presenting this institutional knowledge when you need it to improve decision-making and mitigate risk. We've actually deployed in as little as an hour at with some customers. So you're seeing value almost instantly. And part of this is because we plug into the existing workflow. So if your team's on Microsoft Word or using Google Docs to review contracts, we plug right in. Next slide, please. To dive a little deeper, I think we're on auto populate here. So if you're only doing a few contracts a year, it's probably pretty easy to track, but most likely you're doing hundreds or even thousands of contracts. So that's where we can really make a difference. We're making use of your historical contracting experience so we can eliminate the repetitive work and identify risk and how to mitigate it. We disseminate these contract terms to folks in the business that need it, whether it's finance or customer support. Once you've signed and executed this contract, it enters a contract portfolio. We make it really easy to identify risk across the entire contract portfolio. And then the thing I'm most excited about is we're helping decision makers, GCs, chief legal officers, and the C-suite make better decisions around negotiating strategies and how those are impacting the closing timelines. Next slide, please. I don't have a lot of time to get into the whole contracting lifecycle, but just to highlight a few key points where we plug in, because as I mentioned, we're modular. Next slide, please. We're plugging into the negotiation part where we can use your historical contracting data to show where and how often you've seen similar language and how you've preferred to improve those terms in the past. Next slide, please. We also are helping disseminate this information, as I mentioned before. Everyone in the business needs to fulfill obligations in the contracts. We make it very easy for them to understand what they're expected to do. Next slide, please. Compliance is always an issue. So if you have a data breach and you need to know which customers need to be notified within 24 hours versus 72 hours, it's very easy for us to help you identify who falls into what bucket. Next slide, please. And then finally on renewal, we're again helping people and organizations improve their contracting lifecycle process by showing them how their negotiating strategies have impacted close times before. And last slide, please. These are just some of our metrics that we're doing for current customers. Like I said, 5x return on accelerating contract review times. The overall closing timeline is cut in half, and a 4x return on investment. So I think this is that. Now the next slide, please, is the last one. I don't think we're doing questions now, but I will have a table available later in the day. So would love to connect if you're interested in accelerating your contracting pipeline. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jordan. So now we're going to move into group 3, after which we're going to have a break for a panel. But in group 3, we're going to hear from companies that are helping companies ship product from point A to point B. We're going to kick things off with Baton. I see Andrew is ready to go. So let's dive right in.
Thanks, Harvey. How's it going? I'm Andrew. I'm the co-founder of Baton. And with Baton, our mission is to eliminate wasted hours in long-haul trucking. Next slide, please. So the problem that we're solving today is one that I think impacts everyone within the freight industry, but focused on this specific audience, I think is a little more geared towards the shipper receiver side. It's that dwell and late appointments cause massive inefficiencies. There's three bullets here. So the first is that, especially in today's current market, dwell leads to worse service performance and higher rates. And so what I mean here is higher dwell times ultimately leads to higher freight rejections, and then shippers have to turn to the more expensive spot market to actually get their freight moved. Secondarily, dwell times and late appointments lead to decreased yard throughput. So less predictable arrive times leads to held up inventory and then massively congested yards. And then thirdly, what this all really comes down to is increased transportation costs. So shippers on average pay higher rates and detention fees for longer dwell times. Next slide, please. So Baton solves this problem by converting live unload to off-premise drop and hook. And we do this by operating a network of what we call drop zones that we place in and around major metro areas where line haul trucks come in, stage and pick up fully loaded trailers, and then we optimize a network of local drivers to handle the final P&D. Now, there are two key advantages to this approach. The first is we can come in and help shippers reduce their tender rejections. Now, this is critical in today's market when there's a massive capacity crunch. And then secondarily, we can also help carriers improve their on-time service performance with key strategic partners. Next slide, please. Baton is the technology platform that brings this all together in a seamless and efficient way. So there's three core focus areas that our technology supports. The first is what we call optimized P&D. Now, this is more of an internal set of algorithms and software tools that allow us to optimize our network efficiently and at a very low cost and coordinate everything between the shipper receiver, the line haul carrier, the lot, and our local driver. Secondarily, because we're doing a segment of a line haul journey, it's critical that we operate as an extension of our partner's business. So Baton is the API for the final mile. What I mean by that is that everything from tendering, visibility, invoicing, proof of delivery, that all happens via API and as a part of the existing workflows of our customers and partners. And then thirdly, our goal is to help our partners achieve what we call intra-market network balance. What I mean by that is freight is coming in and out of these cities at all times. And when we go into a city, we don't operate one terminal. Our goal is to operate over a dozen. And so that allows us to minimize out of route miles and make sure that freight is routed the most efficient way possible. Next slide, please. So this is our current footprint within LA. We are live in Fontana, Ontario, Santa Fe Springs, and then have plans to expand our footprint across LA this year and then go into other markets, including Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, pretty much every major metro area early next. Next slide, please. So here's some of the results we have to date. So we work with a couple of the top 10 fleets, and with one of them, this is a major Walmart service provider, we've come in and we've actually helped them increase service from 59% to over 99% on loads that they've used with us. And through this relationship, we've actually over quadrupled volumes in LA, where I think we're at about 30 loads per day with them in the Los Angeles market. Next slide, please. And then here's another customer that we're actually able to show the name of. This is CRST, who we've been able to come in and help improve service performance from 45% to 95% on loads they've done with us. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andrew. So next up, we are pleased to welcome Commtrex.
Good morning. My name is Martin Liu, and I'm the CEO and founder of Commtrex. Next slide. One of my mentors told me that if you take a slow-moving and antiquated industry and build amazing software for it, you will have the potential to create an iconic legacy business. I'd like to start off by sharing with you all how I came up with the idea for Commtrex. I was a former commodities trader for Bear Stearns and JP Morgan on the coal emissions trading desk. My primary responsibility was to source coal from mines and move it across the world with US-based power generators by rail, truck, barge, and ocean-going vessel. There are a few major problems that I encountered as a shipper. First, minimal connectivity. It was difficult to find the right people to get rates from in a timely manner. There were several calls that I had to make in order to get quotes from railroads, lessors, storage providers, transloaders, and terminals. There was also limited data sources, and the ones available provided typically a 1 week or more lag in data. And for a mode of transportation that moves over 80% of all commodities across North America, I thought that was something that needed to be changed. Next slide. Thus, the idea for Commtrex was born. Commtrex provides one centralized platform that takes all the constituents of the rail ecosystem on the supply and demand side and brings them together through an electronic marketplace. Data is at the core of our business, and we leverage the activity of our users to provide a recommendation engine that tailors content to the user's interest, while also taking that data and providing insights in near real time on what is happening in the rail industry. We've taken a traditionally disparate and fragmented industry and provided a single platform for everyone to connect with. We are the largest and most liquid online platform for the North American rail industry. Next slide. Commtrex is currently comprised of six different modules. As a marketplace, it's important to first understand before I get into the different components of it that Industry 1.0 was really classified listings and Craigslist type of platforms. What we've done is we've created a digital marketplace that effectively takes the old style of managing connections, which was by the phone, and creates a digital platform for that. Next slide. We have 6 different modules. We have 4 marketplaces, which are storage, leasing, buy, sell, and transloading. We have a rail services directory, which creates digital storefronts for every rail service provider in North America. And then we also have a rail insights module, which connects our data and content into one module. We currently have over $1 billion in rail assets. Over 70% of all short-line railroads and all 100% Class 1 railroads use our system. We have over 2,700 rail service providers, and over 65% of our marketplace are rail shippers, with many of them being the largest companies in their respective commodities group. Next slide. Our goal at Commtrex is to help provide rail shippers with an easy, intuitive experience for connecting with the supply side of the market. If your business has products that are shipped by rail, our platform is an essential tool for you to have in your toolbox. First, let me start with railcar storage. At Commtrex, we built a fast and efficient way for shippers to quickly find stores through placing a request in our system that is then instantly sent out to multiple storage providers that match the criteria for what you're looking for. We take response times that have typically taken several days or even weeks and compress them into hours. Our algorithm evaluates which facilities in North America match the criteria of each of the rail shippers, thus saving the shippers time with having to look for available rail capacity. Our transloading marketplace is something we recently launched a few months ago. Transloading is a critical component to the transportation infrastructure in North America. It is effectively when a commodity is transferred from one mode of transportation to another. If you're moving commodities or freight across more than one mode of transportation, you probably use transloading to facilitate the moves. Our transload marketplace provides an easy mechanism for shippers to identify and connect with transloading facilities across North America. We have over 1,400 translocations in our transload marketplace in the US and Canada, and will soon be in Mexico. And we have strategic partnerships with 4 of the 7 major Class 1 roads: BNSF, CN, CSX, and CP. Lastly, we also provide digital storefronts for over 2,700 rail service providers in our platform. We believe that rail service providers such as railcar repair shops, cleaning companies, and fleet managers should have an effective way to connect with shippers. Next slide. We leverage the activity within our ecosystem to provide more real-time insights on trends and events happening in the rail industry. We have created the first ever rail leasing and storage pricing indexes where 100% empirical data from transactions in our system. And our platform also has a knowledge and resource center which organizes all the data, which is user-generated content, to help the shippers better understand how to move freight. Next slide. Lastly, our goal at Commtrex is to create the most trusted rail marketplace in North America, and we provide rail shippers with the most cost-effective and efficient way to move freight by rail. Next slide. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to connecting with you later on. Please contact me if you'd like to partner or work with Commtrex.
Thank you very much, Martin. We appreciate your time. Next up, we are going to move along to One Rail. Hey, Bill. Bill, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Bill Catania, founder and CEO of One Rail. One Rail automates final mile logistics across all modes, courier, parcel, and LTL, in such a way that we save shippers typically 50 to 70%, and we increase the speed of delivery by up to 30%. Next slide. So we found this out because we started as a courier. Last mile logistics is a real mess. It's fragmented, it's siloed. The price spread is sometimes 300 to 400%. And the ability to control and contain cost and quality is very, very difficult. Next slide. So we found this out because we started out as an on-demand courier service. And by doing that for a year and a half, starting to have conversations with large retailers and shippers, we learned that they really wanted a system of record to manage all types of delivery, not just courier. Next slide. So some of the things we heard as we went out and spoke with shippers as Zapped was they were having a difficult time because they were spending so much time with manual dispatch. They had no visibility. They had no real way to understand what their capacity was. There were unfulfilled SLAs. There was no visibility. We have some shippers that had 100 couriers with only 20% trackable. So a real problem. And as you know, last mile accounts for about 50% of fulfillment costs. So this is a significant problem post-COVID, now that e-com is up 30%. Next slide. Our solution starts with integrating at the demand signal. So OMS, point of sale, ERP. We have a contract with SAP, which puts us in Hybris, Commerce Cloud, and S/4HANA. So we capture the demand signal. We automate the dispatch by filtering across our network of 4.5 million couriers in 3 modes. What is the right mode? And then secondly, what is the right carrier or courier based on size, weight, speed, and all different factors that we filter. Finally, our API, we're an API first company, is integrated with all of our couriers. So we're integrated with DoorDash, Lyft, Postmates, and 100 other delivery companies so that we can track every delivery. And most importantly, our customers can provide that tracking to their customers. Lastly, we power a complete customer experience with logistics management and a retail-centric notification, fully branded to the retailer or shipper, notifications, milestones, and a complete branded experience. Next slide. We have a managed marketplace model, and what it does, it really reinforces itself as shippers benefit from a unified source of truth and supply. Carriers and couriers enjoy the demand. One Rail sort of sits between. It is a marketplace, but it's a B2B SaaS-driven marketplace as a system of record for the shipper. Next slide. This is just a snapshot of our network. Our proprietary network is our courier network, which we're very proud of. 4.5 million drivers from sedans all the way up through to box trucks. We also have aggregated freight, parcel, and 3PLs. Next slide. Our sales pipeline is quite impressive. We have right now 18.3 million awarded between American Tire Distributors, Menards, and other clients. We have just over $500 million in gross, between gross and net revenue in our pipeline. And we really focus on retail, healthcare, B2B distribution, and logistics providers. Next slide. I mentioned our partnership with SAP, very, very important to our growth. Next slide. We're on track to do 4 million this year in ARR. We have 24 billion of capacity in our network. Next slide. Next slide. Just to wrap up, we're currently raising an A round, and we're driving that off of our growth from the second quarter, which was immense from COVID, and it's sustained. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. And if you'd like to connect with Bill, there will be a networking session at the end for those of you that just joined us on Remo, which will be a separate platform, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So next up, I'm happy to welcome up Bobby from Manna Drone Delivery. Bobby, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm having trouble starting my video here. If you could let me access that. There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's it. Good. Hi, everyone, and nice to be here. I'm Bobby Healy. I'm the CEO and founder of Manna Aero, which is a drone delivery as a service business based in Ireland and the UK. A few years ago, I realized that there's no delivery platforms available where I live in the south of Dublin, only 5 miles from the city centre. And I realized the reason for that was the unit economics of last mile delivery simply don't work for low basket value items. And the problem for all of the big aggregators, online food aggregators, and low basket value producers or retailers in suburban communities is last mile, and it just simply breaks the delivery model. Our solution is an aviation grade drone. You can see it behind me there. It's got multiple flight computers on it, multiple power systems, and everything you need to be allowed to fly over populated areas in an autonomous fashion. The market size for online food delivery right now is $200 billion, going to $350 billion in the next 5 to 10 years. And the regulatory space for drones doing commercial deliveries is quite mature, quite well defined in Europe and other markets, less so in the United States. But so we're operating now in Ireland and the UK. We signed an agreement about 2 months ago with Tesco, which is the one of the largest retailers, food and convenience store retailers in the country. And we are currently today live flying from the roof of the Tesco building about 900 different products directly to customers' houses in the west coast of Ireland. So we're serving a population of about 10,000 people. The process is very simple. The consumer orders their product online as they currently would. Once that order is received by the retailer prepares the product, hands it to our team that are on the roof of their building. Our aircraft takes off from the roof. It flies at about 80 meters, so about 150 feet in the air, 150 to 200 feet in the air at about 50 to 60 miles an hour as the crow flies. We can carry about 15,000 cubic centimeters. So think about food for about 4 people, meals, or about 3 to 4 kilos. So about 6 to 10 pounds of cargo for each flight. That flight takes us a maximum of 3 minutes operating a 2 to 4 mile radius. So about 20 to 40 square miles of catchment area for the retailer. And as I said, we can deliver McDonald's hot and fresh and crispy the way it should be, as opposed to 20 minutes later by road. Our total cost per delivery is less than $1 fully loaded cost. The current cost in today's market for a road-based delivery is between $6 and $9 that it's costing platforms. So it's impossible to scale that last mile. And just on the product market fit, 98% of the households in the areas we serve are using our product multiple times. So we know that the time has come for drone delivery. We've built the technology platform. We have 35 people between Ireland and the UK that have built this platform. We are live now and we'll be ready to scale over the coming 12 to 18 months. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Bobby. We appreciate it. So we are going to now move ahead into a panel discussion with a few of our corporate partners, after which we will then move into a few more groups of startup pitches. So let's dive right in. I'd love to welcome up the panelists. First, we have Gopal Kamath. He's a digital innovation manager at BASF, where he looks after identifying opportunities and kind of structuring the POC process between internal business partners across the company and startups. And he focuses on analytics, AI, industrial IoT, and ag tech. Next up, we have Mike Placentia. He's the group director of new product strategy at Ryder. He's been with Ryder for the past 10 years, has held senior level roles across transportation, strategy, and development. Mike started his career at UPS as an industrial engineer and has an MBA from Harvard. And then next up, we've got Brian Reed. He's the Vice President of Global Supply Chain Optimization at Geodis. He's got over 20 years of supply chain experience across all sectors of the supply chain, including planning and forecasting, procurement, logistics, customer service, transportation, and warehousing. Prior to Geodis, Brian was the VP of Supply Chain and Transportation and Customer Service at Niagara Bottling, and he started his career in supply chain consulting with firms such as i2, which was acquired by JDA, and Accenture. So welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
Great. Yourself?
Doing well. So I provided just kind of a quick introduction for everybody, but I think what would be helpful is if we can kind of go around and each of you can talk a little bit about your projects that you have open right now at your companies, those that you're looking at, whether it's technologically focused or maybe it's more industrial or application focused. So Mike, if it's okay, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Harvey. Yeah, so some projects that that we will continue to work through is one is warehouse automation. Obviously, we heard some really exciting things about some startups in the space today, and it's a continuous journey here of identifying the right technologies and vendors and optimal use cases for different robotic devices and automation within our warehouses, and really kind of through experience and POCs and pilots, really continue to refine that ROI. Outside of the warehouse, continuing to look at new technologies for resource optimization. So whether that's across the fleet, equipment, or labor itself.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Brian, why don't we go to you next?
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. Yeah, I think for us, it's a bit of a wide variety, and some of them are going to be similar to Mike and Gopal also. But, focusing on the IoT, we've got some proof of concepts that have gone into production and probably expanding that specifically around tracking of goods around the world in air cargo, ocean cargo, and of course over the road too. And then we've got a drone pilot / production that we've been running for inside the warehouse that I think we'll be continuing to expand. And of course, as COVID and other issues such as that go on throughout the world, I think health and safety has become another big focus. And I know Mike and his team is also probably focused on that too, as far as the health and safety within the facilities. Also just health and safety has become a focus area in general. So whether it's an exoskeleton device or something like that, looking at those kind of ideas to see what we can bring to our employees.
Thanks, Brian. And Gopal?
Yeah, so touching on that safety point, it's been a big topic for us is social distancing and contact tracing for production workers. So we're looking at a number of solutions there. Run a pilot. We're also looking at voice assistance for production and maintenance. So ways in which we can streamline that process and simplify the logging of information and the access to information in that capacity. Another area is knowledge transfer for production workers. So as some of our workers on the line go into retirement, we need to train up new workers. And so having that knowledge transfer in a simplified process through video, NLP, that's another area. And then topic a bit unrelated is just exploring quantum computing for the chemical industry.
Excellent. So I want to touch a little bit on what Brian had mentioned, kind of around the visibility space. Obviously, this is not anything that's new to the industry, let alone to kind of the development. But in your opinion, when it comes to visibility and being able to track the goods, where are some of the dark spots still? Is it in kind of the import-export space? Do you lose visibility as it's trying to move through customs? Is it particular modes? Just kind of curious to get y'all's thoughts on kind of where the industry stands and what are some of those hurdles that the visibility still needs to overcome. So Brian, since you brought it up, I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll cover two quick ideas. And one is, yeah, I think there are still dark spots. Customs can be a dark spot, just kind of depending on the type of device that you're using and also how this customs facility and kind of the process is arranged in each of the different countries. Modes, there's obviously dark spots in modes. When you get into air cargo, it's a complete dark spot. It will forever be a dark spot as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're not anytime soon going to let us be transmitting information from airplanes. And ocean cargo can also be a dark spot, although there's ways to get around that in some extent. You got a pretty good idea. You got loaded, and then of course you can track the vessel from that point. So I think looking at the dark spots, I think it's interesting. But I had a conversation the other day. I think one thing we're seeing in the IoT space is it's very crowded. As you said, it's not new and it's still hot and everyone wants it. And so we're seeing lots and lots of different types of IoT devices. And I think, something that'd be good for the startups is to focus on what they're good at, what differentiates them, and making sure that they let their customers know what that is. For us and our pilot, that was pre-certification with airlines. So we didn't want to have to go to each airline and get them certified. So we went with a good solution, but one of the key things was how many airlines you're certified with. But there's 100 different options out there. So if you just look at the list, it can be a bit overwhelming at times.
So it kind of seems like the visibility solution is becoming commoditized. To your point, it is how are they starting to differentiate themselves and make it easier for their customer to implement it around the world. Mike, any follow-up comments on visibility in trucking?
Yeah, absolutely. As we build different platforms, collaboration's key, and the platform's only as good as the participation. So getting smaller carriers and different carriers to plug in and participate is critical. And so I think we're seeing a lot of unique startups come into play that are kind of creating good API integrations that are just making it easier for smaller fleets that don't have IT departments or whatnot to integrate into some larger solutions and play a competitive role in the network.
Thanks, Mike. And Gopal, I know that one of your focuses is in the industrial IoT space. So how are you guys tackling visibility, whether it's, it could be in the manufacturing facility or it could potentially be as you're shipping product as well?
Yeah, so as far as track and trace goes, it's a topic that we've, beaten to death, and it's still a problem. So, we do have initiatives that are still ongoing in different regions to identify better opportunities to streamline that process and make it a little bit more transparent. It's not something I'm directly involved in anymore, but I know that's still ongoing. As far as IoT goes, it's always a topic for us in terms of identifying how do we, one, look at safety within the production facility. So looking at how we, connect our facilities, create cameras with, AI capabilities to understand when somebody is doing something improperly, or even looking at how we use sensors for our production equipment. So whether it's audio-based or whether it's vibration-based sensors, to think about how we look at maintenance and identify potential inconsistencies with machines before they go down, and be able to prevent that. That's another topic that we've been looking deeply into as well.
So I want to circle back to something that Mike had mentioned kind of at the beginning. When we talk about the automation priorities for each of your organizations, how have they changed as a result of COVID? And it could be physical, it could be hardware. Maybe you were looking at material handling or AMRs, and maybe because of COVID, you had to focus on the business, and so those were deprioritized. Or maybe the reverse is true. But it could also be software related automation. So booking, scheduling, a lot of that has come to the forefront, I think, for our corporate partners and trying to figure out faster ways to transact. So I'm just curious to get everyone's thoughts and see, has COVID and the new reality shifted your priorities? And if so, anything that you can share. So Gopal, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, so for us, COVID, obviously, as it has impacted all companies, has led to a huge influx of remote workers. And as a result, our IT systems have had to be managed differently in order to accommodate that growth in user. And so for us, one of the actual topics that we're looking at, which is not really supply chain related, but is IT support automation. So looking at how do we get end user support streamlined so that we don't have our call centers jammed up. We don't have direct calls between end users and call centers, and rather find ways to automate that using NLP chatbots, for example, which can then potentially integrate to our back end and resolve issues automatically rather than having to go through an actual human and interact that through the process. So that's a topic that is of high priority for us, and it's something that I think automation can help with substantially.
Yeah, excellent. Brian, why don't we go to you next?
Yeah, I think from an automation perspective, it's one of those categories, and as Gopal said, there's a lot of categories that have kind of gotten heightened awareness because of COVID. But I think automation for us is accelerated and gotten heightened awareness. So there's some things that we've had, that have been accelerated because of COVID, but I'd say this one, heightened awareness, right? The fewer touches from a human to a human or a human to a box, the better for transmitting of the disease. So looking at, drone warehousing tools for inventory, so you don't have people walking around as much, looking at automated robots, whether those are robots that are feeding humans or automation, completely. Those are the kind of things that we're accelerating, looking deeper into, and probably going to do more of, versus some of the other technologies, maybe we're just accelerating, the volume isn't going to get any more, but automation is definitely one where I think the volume will increase.
Thanks, Brian. Mike?
Yeah, I think it's been accelerated. I mean, the need for automation was there before, and I think as COVID has definitely driven an increase, across other players in the industry, it's by virtue going to increase our focus as well, right? So it's just a circular effect, accelerating everybody's efforts there. But it's also bringing just kind of a new value proposition to the technology that maybe didn't exist before, just because of, the people aspect, right? So you've kind of almost got an intangible value proposition and new stakeholders to the decision-making process that didn't exist before. So I'll give an example, right? I mean, I think we've seen some of these like exoskeleton devices, right, have certainly been, safety in terms of lifting and hoisting. But now if those exoskeletons can help you determine if you're 6 feet away from somebody else, there's this whole new value proposition that comes to the table that you can actually use to to drive adoption of the device, or at least a pilot.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions next, just around how you guys operate internally. What are your internal team structures, and how do you look at approving pilots? And what are some of those steps? I mean, are you calculating the business case up front, for example, or are you guys just happy to run a lot of pilots quickly, develop the muscles, and then move on? Every corporation tackles this differently, so I'd love to learn. I'd love to share with the audience too, kind of how you guys are set up internally. Mike, why don't we go ahead and start with you and Ryder?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a new product strategy team, and really that group's role is to focus on engaging with startups and the new technologies and business models that are available, and finding the right place where that could apply in the organization. As we start to hone in on certain strategies, or find a roadmap of things we're going to be putting in place, separate product teams focused on rolling those out. So I think for pilots, what's important for us is the product or the concept, is it part of our roadmap? And more specifically, if we do the pilot and it works, is it something that we've got the capacity or focus to roll out, right? The last thing we want is to do a pilot and it's great, and then we come back to the startup and say, this isn't something we're going to be ready for for 3 years, right? And we want to be fair to them, and we want to be fair to our internal resources. So I think it's very important, regardless of how great the idea is really reflecting on, is this something that if it worked, that we'd be ready to move on in a substantial way upon completion.
Thanks, Mike. And Brian, how does your team kind of bring in new products, whether it's software or hardware?
Yeah, I think for us, we're a little bit smaller organization than some of our peers in our space. I mean, obviously it's a big space, but at least some of the peers that work with people like Plug and Play. So I think we're a do it once and do it right more of an organization versus, as you said, doing many and kind of getting that muscle going and knowing that some are going to fail and some aren't. That's probably the method I prefer. And I think we all would prefer that, but at some level, like Mike was saying, we need to make sure that what we put through the pipe actually is going to be successful, not only in the pilot, but then at the end of the pilot, be successful in the implementation. So for us, we'll spend more time up front, speaking with the startups, seeing what the business case is, if it fits our scale, because again, for some of our functions, we may be a smaller scale than others, and a lot of these AI type of tools and big data crunchers need a lot of scale to really bring in their value. So we'll look at that up front, and then of course, if passes the checks up there, then we'll go into pilot and move on into production with the successful pilot.
And just a quick follow up to you, Brian. Whenever you're looking at these, are you thinking about a particular customer in mind that you want to roll this out with, or are you thinking, maybe this would be good for 2 or 3 of our customers, or maybe this would be good for Geodis itself? How are you guys evaluating the end user?
Yeah, I think it depends on the scale of the solution. So the highest volume is probably specific customer or set of customers, right? So maybe it's for IBM on our 4PL side, or maybe it's just for our large e-commerce footprint in the US, right? Being affected by COVID and going crazy. We need more automation to move more things, kind of thing. We do have a little bit of a roadmap, but probably not as formalized as Mike and his team, and maybe even Gopal. As far as what we're looking for down the future. I mean, I keep my eye out for those things, and I'll probably feed it to the business, but it's not coming the other direction. The business isn't as much setting the strategy and coming to us and saying, hey, keep your eyes out for these things. It's a bit of a reverse engineer in that point.
Yeah, I just want to echo Brian's point about the do it once and do it right? I mean, everybody's got limited resources, and part of that comes with size, right? If it's too small, are you really going to get the measurements out of it? Because I think what's important is that when you finish a pilot, you've got an objective set of data that you can make decisions with after, right? And if it hits the criteria and objectively this is the right thing, it shouldn't be a hard sell afterwards. The last thing we want is we come back and, hey, this is great. We want to run a couple more. It's just a waste of everybody's time. The startups now, what they're expecting to go or no go, it's not going to be there. Internally, folks are going to be like, they're not going to take you seriously when you come back to the next one. So it's all that upfront effort and commitment. So when you come out of it, everybody's kind of got the buy-in, like if this hits these numbers, we're going to go forward. There shouldn't be a question about the data afterwards.
Yeah, I think I agree, Mike. We look at it as almost phase -1, right? It's part of the same project plan. It's part of the same process. It's just a really small first deployment, first idea. Maybe not everything quite connected yet, to save some money, but then you're assuming in that project plan it just keeps going, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Excellent. And Gopal, how is BASF approaching this?
Yeah, for us, I think we're quite different actually. I think just because of the number of divisions that we have and the number of regions that we have that operate very independently of one another, we can't take the single path approach. We actually, in many cases, we try to start small with a pilot in a specific region with a specific division. And then based on the outcome of that particular pilot, we'll roll it out to that group and then potentially share that information across some other groups for them to understand and potentially leverage the knowledge that we obtained through that pilot and understand whether that could potentially fit into their roadmap as well. And we don't really have high level priorities or roadmaps across a lot of these different divisions in terms of digital. And so it becomes a search from my side to really identify the right internal stakeholders that are motivated to drive change and are progressive enough to dedicate resources and time to running an actual pilot and what that entails. So as an organization of our size and our distribution, it's tough to have a successful pilot get deployed across a large region and certainly not the entire company. So we have to take a stepwise approach and take small wins and try to sell those into larger wins across larger parts of the organization. And unfortunately, you mentioned, Mike and Brian both talked about data and using that to drive decisions on commercial deployments. And for us, unfortunately, sometimes even the data isn't enough. So even if we have dollars and cents figures that can show that a certain solution saved us X amount of money or time or resources, it isn't always a sell. And so it's a problem with large companies, of course, a lot of politics and bureaucracy, and unfortunately the data doesn't always drive the decision. So that's something I think we intend to change, and I think ideally everyone wants to change, but with a large company of our size and age, it's often difficult to change processes. So, right.
Yeah, and Gopal, quick follow-up. How do you approach the communication side? With a startup, they're going through the process. You've defined the business case, they're hitting on their metrics, and of course things can happen. But what's your methodology for just keeping that line of communication open?
Yeah, so I've worked with startups and in startups before, so I understand that mentality, and I also understand the corporate side. So for me, I try to strike a balance there, and I try to empathize. It's sometimes hard for people within our organization who've only been with BASF their entire career to understand the perspective of an external startup and the limited resources and time that they have. And so I try to always communicate that back to the startups that, look, I want you to understand our process. It's not clear and it's not guaranteed and it's not simple. So it requires patience, it requires agility. And unfortunately, sometimes no matter how well you do things, it's not going to work out. And there are a number of factors for that. So I try to be as transparent with them as I can be. So, even if there's something that I can communicate to them to give them a little heads up that things might not work out as we expected, I will do that. So it's really about being very transparent throughout the process, and I can't always control the process. So it's just, I can try to be the best partner I can to the startups by being, as close and honest with them as possible.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're out of time here, but I thought it was a great conversation. And to all the folks in the audience, if you'd like to connect with Brian, Michael, or Gopal, you can find us in the networking session at the end of the presentations today. So thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Harvey.
Thanks, Harvey.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the panel. There's a lot more to discuss, of course, but we're going to move forward. We've got 3 more groups of presentations. We're first going to hear from group number 4, which is going to focus on the analytics side of things for the supply chain. And so I'm happy to first welcome up Arch Systems.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Riddhi. I'm here to present to you Arch Systems. We are an emerging data and analytics leader in the electronics and discrete manufacturing industry. I'm the head of strategic relations, and we'll start with talking about Industry 4.0. The next slide. So the promise of Industry 4.0 is based on data. Next slide. But the world is full of incompatible machines. You have, smart machines with no standard data protocol. You have legacy machines that have no easy way of getting data, and then everything in between. Next slide. And why? And that makes it difficult, right? So, but what do you do with the data? Why do you need it? Like, when we think about Industry 4.0, we think about in different steps. The first step is being able to get the data from these machines and integrate into MES and ERP systems to automate processes. Next one is, sorry, I don't know why it's, previous slide. After that, sorry, no, next slide. So, yes, first start with the MES and ERP and business intelligence tool integration with the data. The second one is to move to using the data to drive consistency across processes and such as global KPIs, followed by using the data to do predictive maintenance and quality. And ultimately, what your ultimate goal is to use machine learning and AI to create dynamic closed loops feedback systems that really make the process as efficient as possible. Next slide. We at Arch, we do end-to-end solutions. And the first step is getting data out of the machines. We have 5 different ways of getting data out of these machines, for everything from pure software, pure hardware, and in between, to be able to get these data out in everything that from SMT lines to back-end assembly mechanicals. Next slide. After this data is extracted, key part is to be able to standardize the data, so then that data can be used widely. So we have a broker that does that, and from that point it can integrate into MES and ERP systems, push that data into custom dashboards, and be able to build applications and allow customers and partners to build applications on top. Next slide. And the applications range from custom reports to global KPIs and advanced analytics like machine learning and AI. Next slide. So to summarize, our systems, we do everything from getting the data, standardizing the data, and building applications on top of it. And next slide. And specifically, I want to talk about when you have machines that are high value, like in the SMT surface mount technology lines in the electronics industry. You have, when you have high value equipment, it's really specifically important to be able to achieve high utilization, not have the equipment sit idle, and be able to use the data to work with changing workforce. Like, we know now, like, for example, in the last, because of the pandemic, there's been a lot of factories that have been moving away from China to locally and elsewhere. You have language challenges, like how do you use machine data to be able to improve and optimize that process. Next slide. So we've taken a lot of the data and standardized it, and we've been able to analyze. One case study that I want to show you here that we did for a top tier electronics manufacturing contract manufacturer was looking at the air data from this particular type of machines, pick and place machines across all their lines, across all their factories. And just by doing that initial analysis, we were able to get 6 actionable items that could increase their line utilization from 3 to 5%. That's $10 million in savings alone. We've also determined that for future analyses, we can improve line utilization by 20 to 40%. That's equivalent to about $100 million.
Thank you, Reedy.
Next slide.
But thank you very much. Folks, if you'd like to get connected to Arch Systems, you can find them in the networking session. Okay, next up, I'm happy to welcome up MotionMiners.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Sasha. I'm one of the co-founders for MotionMiners. We are a young startup from Dortmund, and we developed the so-called motion mining technology, and that's a technology to analyze manual working processes fully automated with the help of sensors and machine learning algorithms to find optimization potentials in the field of efficiency and ergonomics. Next slide, please. So we are the MotionMiners, founded in October 2017. Officially, we are a spin-off from the Fraunhofer Institute for Material Flow and Logistics. And that means that the technology, the motion mining technology, which we developed, was invented there during the dissertation of my co-founder, Sascha Feltos. And we took the technology out of the institute to found our own company. Currently, we are 28 employees based in Dortmund. It's the western part of Germany, and we would say that we are currently the leading provider for automated process analysis for manual processes. Next slide, please. So what do we do? Imagine if you want to analyze manual working processes in production or logistics, for example, then you have to do it normally manually. So industrial engineer has to stand there the whole day next to a worker, stop times with a time stopper, write down what he did when and where. And with this few amount of data, maybe from one person, from half a day or one day, the industrial engineer tries to find optimization potentials regarding the efficiency or ergonomics. And that's a really huge effort to get this kind of data to optimize the processes. And that's the reason why we invented the motion mining technology. And what we do is we equip the shop floor employees with mobile sensors like wearables. And with these kind of sensors, we are then able to detect the activity. So is the employee walking, driving a forklift, bending, handling things, or handling things over the head. And in addition to that, we equip the whole systems with so-called Bluetooth beacons to see where the activities, where the processes are done. For example, in aisle 27 or at dock 25 or at a working desk. So then we are able to create heat maps or iterative heat maps to see how the employees are moving through the system. And other sensors we are using send us a lot of raw data, and our algorithm is then able to find certain patterns in this kind of raw data and translate it into usable KPIs in the field of efficiency or ergonomics, like waiting times, driving times, walking times, number of bending movements, all the KPIs the process engineer needs to have a look into the process and to find optimization potentials. If you compare that technology to manual case studies, we are now able to reduce the effort and save time to get these kind of KPIs because we don't have to stand there the whole day next to a worker anymore. And the good thing is that we now can have a longer look into the processes with more employees over more shifts over a longer period of time. And in the end, we have a much more valid database to find optimization potentials. And the good thing is this technology is totally anonymized. So there's no link between the KPIs and a certain worker. Next slide, please. So how do we offer our technology? On the one side, we do consultancy projects for our customers. So we make the optimization potentials for them. We analyze the data, we interpret the data, and do recommendations for them. On the other side, we developed a scalable product called Manual Process Intelligence. That's a hard and software solution for our customers so that they can do the process analysis totally by their own. They use our hardware, upload the data on a web-based platform, and then in a nice dashboard, they see all the KPIs, which they can then analyze by themselves. And in the future, we also want to deliver data services like benchmarks, which we then want to sell to our customers. On the right side, a few logos from our customers, from smaller, medium-sized companies to big corporates like Skoda, Volkswagen, or all the big logistic service providers, and also some market size, just the market size here in Germany. I think worldwide, it's a little bit bigger than. Next slide, please. And that's from my side. Thank you very much for your attention and stay in motion.
Thank you very much, Sasha. So next up, I'm happy to welcome Kevin Lim, CEO of Tramés. Kevin.
Hi, it's great to be here. So it's great to be here over at Fall Summit. My name is Kevin, one of the co-founders of Tramés, a Singapore startup operating from one of the world's busiest ports. And our mission is to usher in a new age of collaboration across global supply chains. So the company name, TRA, followed by MES, is short for Transmission of Messages. We are here to reduce global trade barriers by simplifying how trade and transportation information is relayed. So if you look around, right, 90% of physical products we use today are moved using containers, and global trade flows are enabled across a network of over 8,000 international ports. moving information and goods across borders via a plethora of organizations, large, small, local, and global, right? So the cross-border shipping industry is plagued with highly manual, paper-based processes and operates in a fragmented manner. So typically having about 20% of shipping costs parked in administration and paperwork. So this problem is particularly pronounced when transportation networks are long, complex, with a myriad of different organizations of differing technical capabilities in global supply chains. So Tramés is addressing this challenge by bringing together partners that traditionally have been working in silos on a single unified platform where information and documentation can be relayed in real time. So let's have a quick look at some of the features in the platform, right? So we bring together diverse users across global trade and transportation networks with our products. So they span, shippers, local haulers, local custom brokers, international freight partners across complex global transportation networks, right? So all the processes are orchestrated over a simple UI where key information can be filtered and viewed immediately over shipment cards that our users are involved in, right? So under each card, we collate granular events and milestones spanning various user interactions, API integrations into ERP systems, and global data stream to provide this unified view. So uploaded documents are stored and shared underneath each shipment, with each user endorsed document sort of secured via distributed ledger technology. So we leverage a global electronic document schema promoted by a Singapore government agency called Trade Trust. So this promotes governance and trust by ensuring that electronic documents are not tampered with. Ownership is authenticated and recommended data structures and schemas are adhered to. Right, so next slide, please. So a quick summary, right? So as you can see, there are four key pillars in our offering. So first, we aggregate data from our user interactions and systems, plus independent global data sources to provide concise and granular shipping milestones. Secondly, secure document sharing capabilities are provided via a permission blockchain platform. Thirdly, we have an integrated trade and transportation workflow across a network of organizations. Lastly, we empower users through a unified workflow to seamlessly collaborate, coupled with real-time updates across shipments on our platform. So how is it that we get adoption, right? So as a shipper-centric platform, we customize workflows for our shippers and their networks. And as paymasters and technology sponsors, they anchor key logistic partners to provide a seamless digital experience, enabling door-to-door visibility and orchestration. So Tramés acts as a middleware across all stakeholders that is inclusive and a neutral and vendor agnostic platform. Last slide, please. So here's a quick snapshot of our offering stitched together. We started our journey back in 2019 and have since gone live with a leading global multinational, leveraging this architecture. So we power about shipments across 500 trade lanes to date, and are working to do global coverage with them by end 2021. Special shout out to Plug and Play, which have provided us with many more multinationals in the pipeline via corporate partnerships. And let's usher in a new age of collaboration, right, across global supply chains. I look forward to connecting with you after this. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So next up, we're going to move into group 5, which is focused on visibility in the supply chain. Happy to welcome up Deeyook to be our first presenter.
Great to be here.
Hey, Gideon. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here to introduce Deeyook. I'm Gideon Rodham. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Deeyook. And Deeyook is about that special combination of ultra precise but ubiquitous positioning. That means precise but everywhere. Next slide, please. What do you do with ultra precise positioning? You can track really anything. You can track any asset, you can track any person, you can track any vehicle, you can track any robot, drone, anything that Deeyook's firmware sits on can be tracked. Next slide. Next slide, please. Why aren't today's technologies good enough? First, there is no ubiquitous solution. There's nothing that works indoor and outdoor. Second, when you have outdoor, GPS is just not accurate enough and has too many flaws, denied areas, global canyons, urban canyons, limitations on accessibility, etc. Indoor, numerous technologies, some promising precision, but nobody offering ubiquitous precision without the deployment of any additional infrastructure. We are using the world's existing infrastructure in order to provide ubiquitous solution now. Next slide. Now, how's that magic done? Next slide, please. So the solution is firmware that sits on one back. The solution is firmware that sits on any transceiver, on a phone, on a tag, on smart glasses, on wearables, on cars, on AGVs, on a drone. Any transceiver, as long as it's an OFDM radio, has our firmware on it, and that guarantees a ubiquitous, precise, passive locationing. Next slide, please. Next slide. How's the magic done? The magic is done by combining two elements. First, interferometry, the ability to measure phase differentials between rays of light. The minute we do that, we are able to garner angles, and with angles, we take that into machine learning and provide you a precise location. So on a radio, measuring angles, to the cloud, machine learning, back to us, you have your distinct, ubiquitous, precise, global position. Next slide, please. Next slide. Just to emphasize, the issue really is any OFDM radio. It's the OFDM radio in your home. It's the OFDM radio in the office. It's Verizon's base station. It's anything that's OFDM. That's Wi-Fi, 4G, and 5G. We measure the angle from it and create a precise position. Next slide, please. This allows you to save money, make money, and save lives. Save lives, firemen, save lives, the lives of your employees, tracking COVID-19, tracking for areas, zones in the office that are not allowed and are dangerous, etc. Next slide. By far, when you take accuracy and ubiquity and combine them, the ability to be indoor and outdoor and provide inches, okay? We're talking a solution that measures and gives precision to 10 centimeters to 4 inches. We're not talking meters here. That's what you need. Next slide. And the system is self-learning. Remember, no need for infrastructure, no need to deploy anything. Only firmware on the radios. Next slide. As term as a business model, we sell location as a service. We provide you the location based on the firmware you have there and bill you for it. Thanks. Looking forward to talking to you later at the networking session. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you very much, Gideon. We appreciate your time.
Next slide, please.
Okay, so happy to now introduce Track3T as our next presenting startup. I think we've got Peter Mills on the line. Hey, Peter. Peter, you're muted.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Mills, CEO of Track3T in Palo Alto. We are deploying patented technology to continuously, accurately, and precisely automatically locate all your equipment, tooling, and material as they move indoors in a factory or a warehouse. We collect continuous timestamp data, which provides invaluable insight into what's actually going on the floor to save companies millions of dollars a year in OpEx and CapEx. We are a SaaS business model. We install hardware and software and charge an annual subscription fee for the data analytics and dashboard. Next slide, please. This is a giant inventory control problem around the world. Just as an example, United Airlines at San Francisco has $100 million. That's $100 million of what they call can't find it inventory. This is a worldwide problem that we're solving. Next, please. We're addressing a large market worldwide, about $8 billion. Our targets are discrete product manufacturing factories and distributors. Next, please. We have high customer interest. Our first customer has invested $400,000. We've got 2 multi-billion-dollar companies that want us to do prototype demonstrations in their facilities, and a number of other companies on this list have all expressed interest. Next, please. This is how the system works. It's based on this yellow device on the mobile robot in the foreground. It's called a mobile sensor platform. That mobile sensor platform does 2 things. One, it identifies the load. In this case, it uses ultra high frequency RFID to read the tags of RFID on these totes. And the second task is it communicates with the blue ultra wideband anchors on the ceiling to locate the mover. So if we know where the mover is and we know what the mover is carrying, then we know where the inventory is. And the mover could be a forklift, a pallet jack, mobile robot, cart, or a person. Next slide, please. This is an image of what the system would look like on a forklift or a pallet jack. There's a yellow mobile sensor platform on the forklift. It communicates with ultra wideband for location, and it has in front of it a software configurable directional antenna that puts the RFID field in the front of the forklift to read the pallet. Next, please. There's immediate value from Track3T. We can install quickly over a weekend. There's no change to existing processes. We can reliably measure and hold forklift drivers accountable, so no drag racing on the night shift. We can prevent out of sequence loading, not on trucks, or wrong or missing light side inventory. Next, please. So we've got some very important competitive advantages. If you talk to legacy system suppliers or the customers who are looking at legacy systems, the universal complaints are they're too expensive, they're too difficult and disruptive to install, and they're not accurate enough. Track3T provides useful accuracy of plus or minus 12 inches in X, Y, and Z. Our competitors are only 25 feet in X and Y only, so they can't tell you what shelf something is on. We have continuous location and time data, which provides amazing insights into what's actually happening on the floor. We're very easy to deploy and maintain because we're battery powered and wireless, so no cables and conduits to pull. We're lower cost, and we have a SaaS business model, which makes it much easier for customers to adopt. Next, please. Our funding and timeline is we're raising $750,000 in a seed round now to build and demonstrate prototypes to 2 multi-billion-dollar customers. We'll use that money also to develop our production units. And then in about 9 months, we'll raise a $2 million Series A round to expand our sales and marketing effort. Next, please. We've got an excellent team in Silicon Valley. Myself, 35 years with both big companies and startup companies. Robert Olson, our CTO, expert in cloud data and analytics, has worked at big companies and startups, successful startups as well. And Hans van Leeuwen, our VP of engineering, is a wireless expert. He's the co-inventor of the 802.15.4b and Zigbee standards worldwide. So with that, next slide. I'd be happy to take any questions at the networking session afterwards.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Harvey.
Next up, we're going to move along to TipTags. And we've got Tim Roberts on. Hey, Tim.
Hey there.
Perfect. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I am Tim Roberts. I am the CEO founder of TipTags. TipTags is a patented map-based data collection system that allows users to create, preserve, and share any kind of data on any kind of map with extreme accuracy. Next slide. So we're solving the problem of operational blindness. You know, historical data is not enough. You need to know what's going on right now in the supply chain, but you have a lot of things that are in your way. Data silos, knowledge loss, out of data information, things that we've been talking about so far today. Insufficient data capture, either the data is not in a form that's usable or it's not even collected at all at this point. So now you don't have the information you need to make good data-driven decisions. Next slide. So we say, why guess when you can know? You can use our system, any data, any map, created by all stakeholders, visible in real time, easy integration with legacy systems. And then on the back end, we use AI, NLP, and other systems to create meaning out of that. So then you have the opportunity to make those good data-driven decisions. Next slide. Okay, let's look at international shipping. Here we're looking at Malaysia, and we're going to look at the Top Glove factory where we've ordered some nitrile gloves. So we can zoom in quite far. You can see we're only limited by the accuracy of the map. Here we're going to look at the front entrance. We can see what that looks like. And then we can go up here to another tag and see our shipment. Oh, there it is on the loading dock. We know exactly where it is and what it looks like. There's our proof of life. And here's the doorway inside. And now we can see inside the factory. So now we know where our factory is, what it looks like, and where our shipment is. Next slide. So here's a little bit of a zoom in. On the right-hand side, you actually see Plug and Play's facility in Sunnyvale that we all miss so much in the front entrance. You put your finger on that magenta tag, and all that information that's associated with that exact spot is presented to you. It can be photos, text, video, can be pushed out from a database, any kind of a form. And now you have two-way communication on a mobile device, de-siloing all that information because everything associated with that spot can be placed in this tag. Next slide, please. So we're building a supply chain transparency system at this moment, getting that information that we just demoed on the factory floor, the information about the shipments on a map, and then we can associate that same tag with a sensor and follow that load all the way to the buyer's hands, and all the information from bills of lading to certifications and everything is available in one spot, de-siloing all that information. Next slide, please. We're working with the Air Force right now. We have three different projects with the Department of Defense doing this exact thing, de-siloing information in high stakes situations and collecting new information so that the warfighter has exactly what they need when they need it. Single pane of glass. Next slide, please. We're also working in insurance and catastrophe management, underwriting, audit, and claims. The three insurance companies you see there are folks that we're in conversation with, and we're working with Geodis to add our location-based information to their blockchain data document collection system so that we can increase the efficiency in claims. Next slide, please. So our team, highly qualified. I'm a previous founder. I've come from supply chain, air transportation management consulting. My co-founder, Greg Parker, is founded 5 companies, exited 5 times as a PhD in astrophysics, and is also a 5-time founder with 5 exits. Chuck Ball comes to me from P&G, and it was the co-CEO of Lycos. He handles my marketing, is kind of my guru. And then we have Jim Burry, who heads up all of our DoD work. He's a former commander in Armory Special Forces. Next slide, please. These are 5 different projects that we're working on. Supply chain transparency, as I mentioned, with Reflex Engineering. We have an MOU to transfer the missile maintenance system for the 90th Missile Wing, doing a drone and autonomous vehicle control with the Advanced Development Office in the Air Force. And then we have Gigaforce. And then, of course, we're the only company that is in both the Silicon Valley and Northwest Arkansas programs at Plug and Play. Next slide. Thank you so much. Look forward to your questions. Happy to talk to you in the networking. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate your time. Next up, we have Logmore. We've got Jarmo on the line. Hey, Jarmo.
Hello, Harvey. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see if we can get the slides turned off for me, hopefully. So I'm going to start with a demo. And I'm going to show you the next big innovation from Finland, the dynamic QR code. But first, this here is a data locker. So a data locker is a small device that has sensors, and it keeps track of the conditions around it. These are used in deliveries around the world, thousands of them every day. And the most common data locker right now is a USB data locker. What makes ours different is the QR code that you can see here on the screen. It is dynamic, so it means that the data collected by the sensors is saved here on the QR code continuously, all the time that is running. And this means that anybody in the world with a mobile phone can scan the QR code. I have here mine ready. I'm scanning it now. It's focusing on the code, and there we go. And in a matter of a couple of seconds, we have uploaded the data from the sensors to the cloud. The beauty of this is that anybody with the mobile phone can scan it because the data is encrypted and packed before it's presented as a QR code. So even an outsider from our customers can scan it, and they can see from the mobile phones has the notifications, so they can see if something has happened to the delivery. Next slide, please. Can we get the slides going? See, there we go. So this is our founders. As you can see, very excited to be in the photo, and that's the reason why I'm here doing the pitch. Antti Tapia in the center, he came up with the idea of the QR code. He has been working with IoT before the term IoT was even invented. Jan and Nico, two best friends around him, are young guys, brilliant minds, developing or programming since the age of 11. Right now, Logmore is 25 people. We have 2 offices in Finland, and we are opening an office in North America at the end of the year. Thank you. And we have over 200 customers. So compared to the USB lockers, our solution is much faster. If you compare USB locker, you have to physically be plugging in and out from the PC to get the data, and eventually you will just receive a PDF. Next slide, please. Our solution is based on subscription. We are always including all the features that we have for our cloud. For example, alerts, unlimited user accounts, unlimited data, and customer service, and even API. Next slide, please. These are our 2 most common popular models. Sorry, Logmore 2, temperature and light, and Logmore 3 with additional humidity and shock sensors. All of this is starting with just €2 a month. Next slide, please. To all of our customers, we offer the possibility to use REST API to push the data to another service. And also to our enterprise customers, we are offering the chance to rebrand the data locker wrapper around it, and also the cloud service with the tailored scan page. Next slide, please. So that was my presentation. I'll be happy to contact you talking about, for example, POCs, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you very much, Jarmo. And if you'd like to get in touch with Jarmo, he'll be at the networking session a little bit later. So we're now going to move into the final group. This is a group of companies that's focused on vendor management and communication. I'd like to welcome up Jay from Velostics as our first presenter.
Thank you.
Hey, Jay.
Yes, hi. My name is Jay Chakarov with Velostics, and today I will talk to you about contactless logistics. Velostics really started 4 years ago when our sister business, Chaiwan, deployed a custom solution at Exelon and reduced the truck check-in time and entry time at their nuclear power plants from 8 hours to 3 hours. We saved them over $10 million a year in logistics costs. Next slide, please. We looked at how similar problems are solved elsewhere and what are the trends in the marketplace. You've probably paid with a barcode at Starbucks or used a QR code at the parking spot to contactlessly check out when you fly. What we're seeing is that barcodes and QR codes are no longer limited to the consumer space. BNSF launched an app called RailPass 2 years ago, and since then, it's been used by 67,000 drivers to gain contactless access to their facilities. It's reduced the check-in time by over 80%. Next slide, please. When we quantified the issue, we identified a $33 billion problem facing terminals, warehouses, and large plants. Some of the costs like delays, driver errors, admin overhead, demurrage, these are fairly well understood. What we saw was that non-productive time was significant and it was rarely quantified. This was the time that the check-in desk or the receiving teams were waiting for the vehicles to get through the gate and to the right bay. Not to mention that with COVID, you also have to take measures to make your facilities safer and limit person-to-person transactions. Next slide, please. When you think about it from a use case perspective, we're talking to Cisco Foods, US Foods, Crane Worldwide on the 3PL side, and we found that we could save them more than $770,000 each at their large facilities, and they have more than 50 facilities each. This does not even include the savings to their own fleet from more efficient operation, dispatch, and reduced fuel consumption. When we spoke to Phillips 66, largest refinery here in Houston, we found drivers are spending on average 5 to 8 minutes entering orders and punching in numbers at the gate and at the terminal rack before they can actually load. Each minute of reduction here results in 5% increase of throughput and revenue for the terminal. Overall, this leads to more than $230,000 in net profit growth per terminal. So why is it taking so long to process trucks? When we fly on airplanes and we land, the pilot doesn't have to get off the airplane, walk the tarmac to the terminal, get in line to get assigned a gate. They don't. And remember, for drivers, each hour of delays in check-in and check-out is costing them 10% of their earning power every single day. So there is a lot of momentum and a lot of interest in solving these delays across the marketplace. Next slide, please. So what we came up with at Velostics is a boarding pass experience for logistics. This is the same as your boarding pass when you fly and you scan at the security and at the gate. Now truck drivers receive these dynamic QR code as a text message on their phone, and they can use the Velostics app, or we can send it in an email, or it can be integrated directly with carrier apps. It contains all the information that they need to get through the gate and to the right facility. It also works with automated interfaces at terminals to eliminate data entry and instantaneously create the orders. Next slide, please. So here's my ask. If you're a distributor, a terminal operator, a manufacturer, you have more than 10 facilities, and you're dealing with these types of delays through the gate, we're confident that we can save you over $6.3 million and generate an ROI of over 10x on your work with us. We're Velostics. We hope to see you at our virtual table. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jay. Next up, our final presenter for this morning's pitch presentation will be CircularTree. We've got Gunther on the line.
Yes, hello. My name is Gunther Walden. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CircularTree. CircularTree is a Berlin-based startup founded in 2018, and we focus on tracking social and environmental information on a digital twin through the supply chain. Next slide, please. Today, we're focusing on carbon block. The issue is climate change. We have many companies who really want to address the issue of carbon footprint. However, when they start analyzing their carbon footprints, they quickly realize that they can only address about 20% of the product carbon footprint directly. 80% of the product carbon footprint typically comes through the supply chain. And this is where Carbon Block supports companies. Next slide, please. Carbon Block provides transparency. Carbon Block measures and helps you to reduce the real carbon footprint of your supply chain. Next slide, please. This is a basic architecture of Carbon Block. What you can see is that all value chain participants are connected to the Carbon Block system and exchange product carbon footprint information. I want to show you how it works on a real life example. Please, next slide. This is a project we just completed with Startup Autobahn and won an innovation award. Project participants were BASF, Motherson, and Porsche. In our pilot project, BASF was providing the granulate to Motherson. And along with the granulate, they provided the product carbon footprint information of that granulate along with the carbon footprint of the transportation from the BASF facility to the Motherson facility. Motherson took that information and added the scope 1 and scope 2, which is assigned to producing a bumper. And then they wrote this complete information on carbon block again, and along with the transportation carbon footprint from the Motherson facility to Porsche, they provided this information also on carbon block. So Porsche then has a complete transparency about the carbon footprint of this bumper. If they would do this with all their suppliers and add the scope 1 and scope 2 of producing a Taycan, they could provide the real carbon footprint of a Taycan to their customers. Next slide, please. So what can you do with this information? For example, one thing you can do is providing different products, for example, different materials of producing your product, and then you can choose the one with the lowest carbon footprint. Or you have decided on a certain product, you can compare different suppliers and choosing the supplier who has the lowest carbon footprint. This way, the product carbon footprint really becomes a KPI, just like price or quality or reliability of your suppliers. Next slide, please. We have done this project and worked together with very strong partners. IFU Hamburg has more than 25 years of experience in product carbon footprinting, and iPoint is a global leader in sustainability and compliance software. Next slide, please. What Carbon Block really helps you is it helps you to determine the best levers to reduce your product carbon footprint. It is designed to have automated processes for data collection and transfer, and this way is easily scalable. It is one standard, one tool, and provides a high efficiency in the communication between customers and suppliers. And through its structured collaboration, there is a much greater accountability for data reliability compared to just sending around Excel or Word files. Next slide, please. What we can offer you in a pilot project is really test out the Carbon Block solution for one specific product with real data. You determine the suppliers to participate in the project. We provide project management and IT solutions, along with carbon footprint expertise and support. Typically, we estimate about 3 months for a pilot project. Next slide, please. If you have any information, any requests for information, please contact us later on in the session. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gunther. So that is the wrap for batch 7. That was a fantastic morning of presentations and pitches. I hope you all found it informative and productive. We are now going to move into the awards section for batch 7, and then we'll have some words for the remote networking session. We're going to kick things off a little bit, and we're going to move into our first partner award. Our first partner award is going to be to C.H. Robinson. They were one of the more active corporate partners in our batch. They had one of the highest levels of involvement and engagement with our batch 7 startups. They were providing endless support. They were always looking to help out and collaborate and provide feedback, whether or not the product or the solution was going to be a fit. They were always happy to be a resource for our corporate or for our startups. So a big shout out to C.H. Robinson there, and thank you very much for the time and the energy that you put into batch 7. Our next corporate partner award goes to Geodis. Geodis, I think, had the highest number of deal flows so far this year. And they also connected with a lot of our batch startups throughout the mentorship program, and they were recognized as the most inspirational mentor. So a big shout out to Geodis for putting in the time and the effort, and again, being a good sounding board, helping out with the business models, helping out with the sales strategies, etc. So thank you again to Geodis, Brian and team for putting a lot of the effort into crafting and curating and helping out our startups. And then the last corporate partner award goes to Swiss Post. I think Swiss Post had the broadest range of technology interests and searches. I think they looked at everything from blockchain, 3D printing to robotics. And so they were very, very active in looking around and researching the entire landscape. And we had a lot of fun working with the Swiss Post team. And thank you again to the Swiss Post team for sharing your knowledge and your expertise in this space. And so a big shout out to you guys as well. And a big shout out to all of our corporate partners. I think that we have a few of our award winners now up here ready to say a couple of words. So we'll go ahead and welcome some of our corporate partners on camera. Who do we have first? Let's see. Eric, you want to go first?
Sure, Harvey, sure. Well, thank you, Harvey, and thanks to all the startups and the individuals at Plug and Play. It's been a great first year as part of the program. We've learned a lot, and thank you for the award. And special shout out to Aaliyah for all that she does for us. You know, she's always very helpful with anything we ask of her. So thank you to everyone.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eric. Fabian, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so hope you can hear me. Thank you very much for the award. Actually, think it's also for us very great to work with you, Plug and Play. So really great thank you to your professional work, inspirational work. I think it's very, very good for Swiss Post to get this inspiration from outside. And yeah, as a small country, we kind of need to look around, and it's very great to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are very nice words, and we've enjoyed working with you as well. And Brian, welcome back to the camera.
Hey, Harvey. Yeah, thanks on behalf of Geodis. I think that working with Plug and Play has been great for us. It doesn't just make our job easier; it makes it possible. With the number of startups out there in the marketplace, trying to find the right ones and getting drilled down into the spaces we need can be difficult. So we very much appreciate the efforts from the Plug and Play team, and encourage all the corporate partners to be as active as they can with the startups. It's definitely a two-way street. Every conversation I learn something new. I build my own skill set, and so I think it's a great organization to work with.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you, Fabian, and thank you, Eric. Those are some very nice and kind words. I know the whole Plug and Play team enjoys working with each of you and your organizations, so thank you again. So now we are going to move forward to recognize a couple of startups and mentor awards. I would love to welcome up Dominique Reese. She's a program manager here at Plug and Play Supply Chain and runs a lot of the mentorship program that you see in the program that you see here that we do. So welcome, Dominique, and I'll turn things over to you.
All right, thank you, Harvey. So first, I guess I'll start out with the startup awards. So I just want to start out by saying we had an amazing batch of startups this year, even under the new circumstances with everything being online. So all of the startups were extremely active in mentorship and networking events. And I'm glad I personally had the opportunity to work closely with these startups. So the awards this year were based on mentor and partner feedback. And I'm happy to announce that this 2 startup awards this year will be going to TipTags and Handl.ai. So these 2 startups were selected by our mentors and partners that enjoyed working with them throughout these 3 months. And moving forward, I'd just like to announce that we will still continue to work with all of the startups that took place in batch 7, as they will be our alumni startups. So congratulations again to Handl.ai and TipTags. So moving forward with mentor awards, we had 38 active mentors this batch. And I'd like to thank all 38 for all the time and work they dedicated to our startups, as it never goes unnoticed. And the startups, as well as our team, really appreciate the advice and time that all the mentors have put in. And today we'd like to highlight a few of the mentors for the work that they've done. So this year, the 4 mentor awards go to Subrato Basu, Sherry Brown, Keith Dirks, and Chantel Crocet. So for Chantel, we'd like to thank you for being one of the most active mentors this batch. And we'd like to thank you for the time and advice that you've given to both the startups as well as myself to better the mentorship program moving forward for the mentors and the startups. For Keith, I'd like to thank you for waking up in the early mornings to schedule time out of your day to meet with the startups and the great advice and connections that you've given. And to Sherry, we would like to thank you for mentoring the global supply chain program and your willingness and flexibility to meet with the startups, even if they were last minute meetings. We appreciate the time that you've put. And lastly, to Subrato, we'd also like to thank you for dedicating time to the whole supply chain program and for hosting a workshop to better educate the startups as well as our team members, and to thank you for putting in time as well. I know you took some meetings pretty late at 11 p.m. onward to your time. So thank you for holding our startups on the pedestal. So thank you to all of our mentors again, all 38, and thank you to our 4 mentors that received the awards. I'll pass it back to you, Harvey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominique. And again, a big congratulations to our startups and our mentors. We appreciate all of the effort and time that you put into interacting with us in our community. So next up, I'd be happy to welcome Farzin Shedpour. He's the Managing Director for the Supply Chain Vertical at Plug and Play. Hello, Farzin, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Harvey. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the team for the great work that you all did this morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome, and thank you for giving us a few hours of your valuable time today. Again, congratulations to all the Batch 7 startups. You're some of the greatest in the world, and you have achieved great things in the past few months, and we are sure that you will achieve even greater things in the next few years. We are excited, and we are honored to be part of your journey. And we are also, by the way, excited to be part of your family now. We consider you as our part of our extended supply chain innovation family, and we look forward to keep working with you and keeping in touch. So thank you for that. Speaking of family, our family has gotten a bit bigger in the past couple of months, and we have now new members in addition to the greatest startups who are now our alumni. We have new corporate members. First, I would like to mention Canada Post. I want to thank my friend Charles Brewer for his insight and for his vision to set this in place. We look forward to working very closely with his team in the next few years as they explore many different areas, from automation to worker safety to analytics. Next, I would like to mention Savannah Economic Development Authority, a great group of people we have gotten to know in Georgia that is made up of the great community there, from the port to the airport to the university and the logistics and manufacturing companies. And with us today, I'm glad that Jennifer Bonnet could make it and give us some time. Jennifer, I let you say a few words, please.
Thank you. Good morning, and congratulations to all the startups that just pitched. I've seen a lot of pitch competitions, and I was really happy to be here and be involved, and really excited to see so many cool innovations that I can help bring to corporate partners in the Savannah region. So I am Vice President of Innovation and Entrepreneurship with SEDA, the Savannah Economic Development Authority, and I am part of the Logistics Innovation Leadership Council, which is made up of, as President said, our organization, Georgia Southern University, SCAD, Savannah State University, the airport, the Port of Savannah, Georgia Ports Authority, Gulfstream, Great Dane has an innovation center in the region, as well as a large multitude of large brands have warehouses and or manufacturings, as well as 3PLs. And I am here to help connect startups to those large companies in the region that are doing interesting things and want to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve with innovation in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. And again, it's great to have you with us and great to have you as part of our now larger and growing family. And next, I would like to mention our next new member, ArcBest. ArcBest is a US-based freight and logistics company. They are based in Arkansas. I have had the pleasure of getting to know the team over the past year or so, and now they are officially part of our family. Shane Jennings is with us today. I'll let Shane say a few words. Shane, please.
Hey, Farzin, it's a pleasure to talk to you again, even if it's virtual. We had a great visit last time face-to-face, and I look forward to those opportunities again. ArcBest delivers integrated logistics solutions for a variety of supply chain challenges. Our offerings include LTL services through ABF Freight, ground expedite solutions through Panther Premium, household moving under the U-Pack brand, and maintenance and repair from FleetNet America. Our innovation strategy is really twofold. Our primary focus is internal innovations by allowing our employees a voice through our internal innovation accelerator. And then we look for, of course, external relationships through partners like Plug and Play, which give us access to phenomenal disruptive newcomers to the industry. We are obviously very excited to be a part of this program. I personally look forward to connecting with each and every one of you to advance the supply chain and logistics ecosystems. And to you startups, you're in great hands. This is a great team that goes above and beyond what a partner typically does. So we are excited to be formally a part of the program and look forward to a bright future for all of us involved.
Thank you, Shane. You're very kind. Thank you. And last but not least, I would like to mention Nexa, which is a leading mining company from Brazil. We are excited to have them and work with them as they look at many different subjects from technologies that can help with sustainable mining to circular economy to applications of autonomous systems in the mine. They could not be present with us. They had a conflict, but I'm sure we will have them speak to us in the next events. With that, again, thank you for giving us your time, and I look forward to speaking with you all during the Remo networking session. Back to you, Harvey.
Thank you very much, Farzin. So we were able to land this plane right on time. We are now going to move into the networking session. It's going to be in a new platform called Remo. You can see the networking link there on the slide. Please do join us. We're going to have a quick introduction when we get over there. I'll be able to walk you through how to navigate the Remo format. There's a couple of different floors. There's a couple of different ways that you can optimize your profile in order to find the startups, the founders, the corporate partners, and our other guests. So again, we're really excited to be able to see all of you in the networking session. That's my favorite part personally, because it's a chance for us to be able to talk to each other again and exchange ideas. So thank you again to all of the participants during the pitch event. Thank you to all of our panelists and everyone that had a chance to introduce their ideas to our group this morning. And we will see you over there in the networking session. Thanks.